some of the green space stuff that's usually at the tail end of our other meetings. So I think the first thing that I had on the list, and hopefully Lisa will be here shortly, because I know she's been talking to some plant people, is pond maintenance. And I know there was some talk last time about replacing some of the shrubs that were around ponds over in the MI section. But I also wanted to talk about submerged plants, because I think that's something that would be beneficial to have. You know, specific types of grasses and whatever, they all kind of look like slime to me. But they have a purpose, and it's nothing that would interfere with our overall green space plan, but it would be, like, the sooner the better, I think. So I did forward an email from, well, it wasn't an email, it was a PDF from the Ohio Division of Wildlife. They had a really nice document with pond maintenance, and I'll have to get email addresses for you guys. I know it might take some time to set up.
They should be done tomorrow.
Okay.
We think they'll be done tomorrow.
And I can forward that. It was really neat. I mean, it went into detail about the types of fish to stock and, you know, how to thin them out and how to keep track of all of this. But it also went into, you know, native submerged plants. The only thing I haven't been able to find is, like, how do you know how much is enough, or how many different types of species you need to have. So you've got, like, submerged, so it's completely underground, and then you've got another type of plants where they're kind of maybe on the bank but still partly submerged, and then you've got, you know, plants that are kind of at the bank or just, you know, off the side of the pond. So there's a lot to think about, but I figured if we wanted to get started on doing something before it got cold, it would be enough time. I think a lot of these, they just get weighted and then the roots just take hold on their own. So it's pretty low key and, you know, easy enough to do, but.
And I know Lisa and we had talked about, we had talked about it a little bit, and just so you guys are aware, and I'm just gonna, every once in a while I may just say some stuff for you guys. Every single house that was built over in the new development, and we're kind of talking mostly the ponds that are over there, there's 3 of them. Every single house that was built put money basically into a fund, and it's called the Parkland Fund. So when we talk about different things like this, maybe not everybody, but my thought is that's where this money would come from. So I had a conversation with Finance Committee, and one of the big things is, you know, this money's sitting there. We can let it just continue to sit there, actually do something with it. You know, we may not want to spend over and above what we currently have in there, but it would be nice to start. Now that money can do anything parkland. So anything that, you know, I believe it can still do things at the pool, it can do things here, and it can also do stuff in the new development. So just so you kind of know,
New people.
we have the ability to do stuff like that.
You haven't missed anything.
No, not yet.
Are
We
not
need your
doing
help
this?
though. No, we need your help. No, we can, if you want to.
Oh,
We separated all of the tables to make sure, but if anybody, I mean, we all have them. Is it you? Is that Jeffrey? Tony's like, no.
where's Bill?
Yeah,
I was just
or
gonna
you
shut
guys can
mine
also.
off.
Oh, this too.
Well, I think, you know, the thing that I've been thinking about with the ponds over there, and is I think, I know I'm always saying this, is we're kind of getting the cart in front of the horse with talking about submerged plants. Not that we're not gonna do it, but I think it needs to be part of an overall plan. You know, because for me, I think the thing that, to me, is gonna be most effective in cleaning up those ponds is getting some fountains there, or something to move the water.
Yeah.
I mean, that's.
Well, the
and I don't
fountains
know,
for the
you know,
plants.
I know Lisa's done a lot more legwork into the plants and what they do and what they can accomplish, but I don't, you know, I think we need to maybe, you know, look to someone in like Aquedoc or someone to come up with a plan for those. You know, because that's different than the lakes.
Are
Wasn't
we
there some
talking about this
discussion?
now?
Yeah, wasn't there some discussion about
We're talking about the
some
pond.
experimentation in regards to plants? That was the whole purpose of the original discussion. So we
Yeah,
could try
like
some
starting
things.
one, like starting at one lake.
Well, I've actually spoken with somebody. Are we talking about this now?
Yeah, we're waiting for you.
Sorry. Okay, so I got a hold of David Roseman gave me the name of a couple people, David Roseman's with Fact, right?
Yes.
Mad is the name of the company that I called, and I actually spoke with her today, kind of told her our situation, and of course it's a business for them, but she said, well, you know, give me an idea of what you're doing, and she said if they could get out, they'd come have a look. We got back together today, I guess they didn't have a look, but anyway, they're offering to do a site visit, no charge. Basically, a site visit, they can give me ideas of plants. She kind of went through maybe what we should be doing. She talked about the submerged, is that what you're calling? She's saying it's important to have those, but it's also important to have the plants around the edge because they're taking care of the what's it called? That comes in from the
Erosion and.
sediment, yeah. So the submerged takes care of what's in the pond, and then this takes care of like the stuff that doesn't hit, it doesn't go through the drain tile and all that kind of stuff. So they'll come out for no charge. I didn't schedule it because I didn't know if I should go ahead and do that or if it's okay, who would want to come. And then at that point they start charging. They can kind of give you an idea of certain plants. I told her I had been to a native plant place and she said, well, they're really nice, they're very Ohio plant, but in terms of being kind of pigeonholing water plants, she has another place that we can check out. Anyway, they'll come and do the site visit, and then after that, once they start, I mean, I think they'll give us some idea of the plants, but then if we want to, really specific, they'll plant them if we want. They said they also love, because I think there are 4 people in the business, so they love having volunteers. And they charge accordingly, so it's hard to tell me like what. Let's see. Once we start talking about the list of the plants, under $4,000, depending on what they're working on. After that, like if they're planting, it kind of depends, how much help you have and what you're planting and all that kind of stuff. So,
I guess what I'm trying to understand is how the plants, or what type of plants are gonna be able to be put in there that's gonna eliminate the mucky, the algae. I mean, I know, it's some of the plants can keep the geese from getting in, and that's beneficial.
what she's telling me is the plants that you put in the water, sounds like you've researched this, maybe you already know it, but the plants that you put in the water, they're clearing the water, they're eating, because what's happening is you've got all these, if people are putting fertilizer on their lawns, you've got all this good stuff in water, so the plants are eating that. If it goes in and then if it goes in and there's nothing taking care of it, it starts growing the algae.
The nitrogen.
Yeah, so those plants are eating it. The plants on the exterior are taking care of the sediment that comes in from outside, like not the water coming in from the storm.
But I don't know that we have a sediment problem in those.
Well, you don't yet.
Yeah,
But we didn't have one
everything
here
runs
either.
together. It's all about, and again, this goes back to the original discussion that Rachel came in and talked a lot about the ponds, even though we didn't impose upon her the actual design of those plans. She was very specific on the preliminary designs to discuss, hey, this is why we do this, and there's several layers of plants, and she gives an intro on this stuff. And essentially, this is what you're telling this time, that there's a certain levels of plants that you put in at different points, and they work in a natural way, which is what the village has been gearing towards, is trying to do things in a more natural way, which over the long term costs you less money, is more beneficial.
Rachel could be, she's already done the plan.
She has.
So she could be a
She's done
good
the preliminary.
resource for what plants are we doing.
Yep.
Yeah, and that's one of the other things I wanted to ask about was, she's, in addition to what we paid her for, she pretty much she knows what we've discussed and what we want, and she's probably got the plan for the whole village. I don't know to me, it would seem like the next best step would be to just have her finish that. And maybe, I know what she put together for that one reserve was like pie in the sky.
Well, her plan, my understanding is the only thing that was missing in her plan that she gave us for all of them was what plants to use.
Correct. Then
That was
each
the
one-
only thing missing.
Each one, so that's, he's on the right point there. So the main plan, remember, so she did a preliminary, where she talked about the different types of pond plants, or the different types of plants in general. She needs to focus in and determine, as Tony has stated, the type of plants you need at the level of each pond. So she needs to do each of those reserve area ponds. You can employ her simply to do the plans for the ponds. If you wanna focus on the pond, that'll be obviously a different cost overall. I mean, efficiency wise, if you wanna spend the money and budget it, we get a quote from her and say, hey, just do this. How much is it versus if you did everything, you know, to give us that, you know, there's different ways to handle it, but if you just wanna focus on the ponds, you can get a price for that.
Well, I would think that the plan, I don't know, I've lost my plan that Rachel had done originally.
Can we
But I would think you take that plan and give it to the people that you're talking with, because
But what's the difference? I mean, I'm not saying you shouldn't, that's another option, but what's the difference? If they're doing it or she's doing it?
Well,
Well,
because they're the
I-
ones that are providing the plants, aren't they?
So
No, they would be,
you would
they could
take,
either be giving us the name of the plans so that we could order them, or we could have them order them if we
they
want
would
to
charge
pay for
you,
that.
they would charge you for that. Again, everyone's gonna charge for something, it's
Yeah.
not, and you also, they have to be careful too, they're not gonna take the landscape architect's work and then, they have to do their own stuff, like, they can't use hers without express permission as part of the plan. If we paid her to present the plan and then she worked with them to provide the plans, then that's a yes, but they can't, you can't use another architect's work, you know, for yourself, it just doesn't work that way, because that is the property of the architect. At the end of the day, they have to-
We paid for that. It's our property.
Okay, I'll have legal counsel explain.
We paid for that.
Another professional will not do that.
I would
So
like
if
to
you have
s-
two engineers, the engineers.
Well, I bet I can find one that will.
Okay, I'm glad that's on the record, that's good.
I'd like to say one other thing, and it would be good to go through perhaps these people, but I'm wondering if you even need an aerator or a fountain, if you're doing the right.
You're not supposed to at
plans.
the end of the day, right? I mean.
I don't think so, I
Yeah,
think
that's
they
what
should
we
be
talked about.
one or the other.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Now,
well, I
this
mean,
is
maybe
where
a
I'll
both,
continually
why-
bring up
you know,
that
maybe overkill.
I have yet to see, except for maybe a Goodale Park, they got a little pond there that's got stuff growing in it. But I have yet, and I've been looking at retention ponds for a long time, and I don't see any retention ponds that have plants.
I'll give you two examples. Boyer Preserve, Westerville, it's at the end of Park Road.
Okay.
Nice little park, little walk around. That has, she said, spatter dock in it. So basically, she's saying some commercial plants would be water lily, water lotus. She said this one has spatter dock. She didn't mention that in the first place, but that's an example of if you put the plants into the water and you're not really doing anything else with the water. You're not fishing there because there's a bunch of stuff on top of the water. So that's one example, and if you go to Highlands.
Right by Highland Pool?
That'll show
Yeah,
you, they actually worked on this one, that'll show you their version of, she actually said it was a storm.
Looks like that wetland area, looks like a wetland area.
Yeah, and it's, I don't know, I don't think it was exactly like ours, because it might be a little more shallow, but the wetlands might be like the top, like.
Mhm.
But that kind of shows you what it is if you're putting plants on the periphery and not so much in the middle.
So
They're just right up the road.
we have 3 identical ponds basically that are all at the same stage of nothingness, for lack of a better.
I
Well,
think,
I mean, they're all essentially the same blank canvas.
yes.
well, they're just,
They are a little different in 2 of the ponds, there are 4 new ones.
Okay.
Are there
2,
four?
yeah,
Where's the
there's a
fourth one?
secret one.
There's one that's built in the back, yeah, I know what you're talking about.
2 of them, they're not mowing around, they're just letting all the vegetation grow up. The other 2, they're mowing around, so I don't know if that's what you mean by different.
Yeah, no,
That would
it
be
is, so has there been any thought to maybe contacting OSU and seeing if they would have interest in using the ponds as a research laboratory?
we had a guy out that looked at the North Lake, you know, so.
Yeah, that's not including these 2 lakes.
Right,
Or
I mean,
lakes.
I would think if you have those 4 ponds, it would be possible that someone in you know, they have OARDC, they've got their whole agricultural department, but then they've got landscaping, they've got their Sea Grant institution, which means they get money, you know, from the federal government specifically to look at lakes and waterways in Ohio. And it's a whole lot, you know, lot cheaper for a professor and a couple students to come here than to go up to Lake Erie for a weekend and to say, you know, design us 4 different, you know, ponds. And you can come by whenever you want, take tests, do all the research, use this as a lab for your research and, you know, figure out what works. And that would be
It's good. It's
likely without, you know, aside from having to possibly purchase the plants, they would come out and test the water, they would come out and maintain. They might have no interest whatsoever, but,
Was
you know,
that,
they're a research
So-
institute.
was that mentioned with the
Well, no.
OSU program?
Actually, no, because he's in a specialist department, so this is interesting, so it's a good idea. So City Regional Planning Department, where I come from, also the architect and landscape architecture departments are all under the same roof there, right? And so they do joint lab work, right? So
On top of that, you've got
yeah, so-
biology,
so
you've got Sea
essentially,
Grant.
yeah, essentially what, because it's a big deal in city regional planning, obviously, these ponds, right? You need them, but they're generally not handled properly, okay? And it would be, professors, you have to kind of get on the calendar, right? So we would have to contact over there in city regional, talk to them, say, hey, we've got a good project for your students, because their students need, kind of an internship joint project type thing as, you know, capstone, whatever it's called over there, right? At the graduate level. And I've had a couple of those over the years at a couple different municipalities where the students come and they prepare something. It was more on subdivision design in the past. However, this is perfectly.
And yeah, on top of that, if you find an assistant professor or someone going for their PhD who's doing a long-term research project, this would be something they would have different cohorts of students come in and maintain the same thing, you know, over 6 years if they want to find out what plants are most beneficial in, you know, zone 6 of blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
It would be possible that you get 6 years worth of maintenance and at the end of it, they'd say, you know, pond number 3, you make everything look like that and you'll never have to touch it again.
Yeah, and that's a
And
way to
it's,
get
you know,
things done.
it's free work and it's, you know, it's doctors doing it.
It's not gonna be all handled under the same time, you know, the same way that everyone wants. It's gonna be an experiment, as I pointed out, but it's an effective way to get the planning done and the work done for much less cost.
Okay, who wants to call him?
I have contact info.
I can too, I've got.
Yeah, we can coordinate.
Sorry,
So
that's a great idea.
Would we have them do the 2 older lakes? Instead of the 4 newer ones?
So I think.
No, I
you're-
think we need to.
I think these are a lost cause. I think
Yeah, I
we-
think the older lake, I think your older lakes are a special project, and they can be controversial in nature, is what I've observed, and that's something I think your council and residents are gonna have to come to an agreement on, much like the facility.
Which, the 2 lakes, is that what you're talking
The
about?
big ones are more for a longer term project.
That's a different.
Okay.
This is key toward, this is actually very approachable for a student project, simply because every subdivision has put in water quality control ponds like this, but they're all done crappily by the
If someone could
developer.
figure out how to fix this problem,
And
maybe.
it suddenly becomes a new standard, right?
The era of-
And they teach it.
Yeah, and there's somebody who wants to write that paper, and say, I fixed it.
Yeah.
No, I totally agree, that's
Well,
great.
that's what this gal was saying, she wished that the developers would start doing it this way.
Well,
Start
what-
figuring out what's the best way to do it.
This is, so with the developer, right, profit is the primary cost. The ponds are put in because they have to be put in.
Right.
Okay? Now, what happens is, as, nobody really has a good answer, because nobody's really, I think, spent a lot of time, because once you have the answer, you can write it into the requirements, right, from the development plans. Although, we've already got ours, we'll benefit from potentially the experiment that gets you there, that then other municipalities adopt as, you know, code, essentially, development code. So, it's a good idea.
So I should hold off until.
We'll exchange info, we'll coordinate, and we can make some contacts and get some info back to the group. That'll be good.
So I should hold on.
Well, more info is always good, so keep doing your research, I would say.
Well, what was the thing that they would do for free one time, you
Come
said?
do a site visit.
You can always do a site visit too.
Yeah,
Have them come
Well,
visit.
and if we already have the site visit done, if this doesn't, if they don't really have any interest, or again, because of COVID, it's gonna be
Yeah.
2023 before they have any interest in doing something.
I mean, for me,
At least we would already be at that point.
I like to
The
pick
next
the
step.
worst one and maybe, you know,
Mhm.
move forward with one of them.
One, as like a
Like-
test.
Does anybody wanna be involved? I mean, will I schedule?
I'll take your
I
word
am
for
not
it.
a plant person, you could tell me that we're planting,
I'm fine doing it alone, I'm just asking.
I would be more than happy to, listen in, but it will, I mean, I'm just being honest, it goes in one ear, not the other. I don't, I want it to look pretty and nice.
If my schedule works, I'm happy to come along.
Okay. Well, I need your information.
You guys will learn that.
What?
That's the only thing that's not my thing, plants.
So one other question, would Otterbein do this as well? Does anybody know?
Likely, but OSU is a research institution. They,
Okay.
you know, they pull in more research money than just about anybody in the state. And they're, you know, they're huge, they're the giant and they're right down the street.
Okay.
Big breadth of students within those departments that would handle this, so,
And
Right.
yeah,
and
and
professors and special needs, so.
so many programs that there's likely a professor, you know, sitting somewhere waiting to use the research money that he's got.
Oh,
Awesome.
I like that.
Exactly.
Okay.
Did you guys get the email that I sent you yesterday about grant money for? I have to go,
I haven't seen one.
I'll go pull it up. Okay. Continue.
I haven't looked today,
I think I sent it to you personal, I gotta find it, cause it had, I swear it had to do with plants.
Okay, so I guess the other thing, that went along with the common maintenance is just the budget for 2021. I know we're coming up upon a time when council is going to be looking at, or if they haven't already started, budget for next year.
Budget for what?
We're
starting it in the
next 30 days.
Yeah, just the village overall. So, I mean, regardless of what we do with the pond, we probably should start talking about if we want to plan specific projects for 2021 and put items in officially in the budget, so we're not kind
Yep.
of piecemealing things together.
Yeah, you want to line item stuff at this point, so you put your request to the finance committee, you know, and basically, the administration has a proposed budget that they put forward, and the finance committee goes through it, and they put it up to all council for the final vote on it. So, if you've got ideas about your money, or you want the placeholders, more than anything else, it's placeholders, right? So,
Yeah.
so if there's some, so for example, you say, hey, we want to make sure we put in enough tree, we put a certain dollar amount of trees every year, right? And council may say, yea or nay, or change the dollar amount, but you've got it in there, so let's say you want a tree program, you know, and you want to plant trees in the reserves, or the community, but can we have $3,000 a year towards purchasing trees, you know, something like that. And then again, council will adjust it based on finance committee's recommendation. So there's one item, the other one could be items for your parks, right? So if you want to put money towards something with the basketball court, as we've been discussing, you know, in some form, benches, anything, then you can say, hey, we want to put $5,000 in for, you know, parks and rec type stuff, and then.
Well, I would say, you know, coming from the council standpoint, I mean, we've already got a budget for, like she was saying, the parkland fund. You know, we've got money set aside.
But it's not line item for appropriate.
Well, I
use
guess,
for
okay,
administration.
well, but
That's
what I'm
it is.
getting at is, what I'm trying to understand when I go to council is to say, what is it that you're looking,
Well, that's what they're gonna talk about. I mean, right, the idea is to discuss what you wanna put a request in for.
Yes,
Yeah.
yeah, so I mean,
okay.
we've been
Okay, that's
talking
what I'm
about.
saying, so what are we talking?
Yeah, so we've been, I mean, in the past, we talked about, you know, things to do at the basketball court. But is any of that going to be done in 2020?
Well, this one I'm getting at is that we
Or-
already, see, we have a parkland fund, which
Yes.
has, I don't know how much money's in that thing, so there's
100.
money. There's money,
But
I mean,
it has
we've
to be-
already got,
Yes.
It has to be appropriated.
well, we have to decide what it is we're,
So what they would do, so that's correct, so there's two conversations going on here. So what you said is correct, but then the appropriate way that you go about doing that is you put in your request and make the line item, say, I want to designate $3,000 as an example, she says an example for trees, let's just keep to that one, right? I want trees, right, P and Z would like to see trees, and we would, recommend where those get planted on a regular basis every single year, right? So that's how you start certain line item dedications, and you do that as part of the budgeting process. And then, yeah, you're probably gonna get called to finance committee, that you as a chair come and talk about, present something to the finance and say, we call it budget defense essentially, whenever you have those things in your department and you put forward, but you here as a body, you can decide things that, hey, I want to put those, make a request to council to make sure those are in the budget or some form of lineup, so they're designated money. So Tony's saying it's not incorrect, it's just that now you would have them appropriated at the beginning of January 1 instead of having to go through the rigmarole at some point mid-year to do it.
So we're seeking to identify what items we want allocated from the department budget.
Potentially.
Yeah.
And
As
council,
opposed-
council at the end of the day decide what part of the budget it comes from, what's
Right.
appropriate, right? I mean, it may just come from the general fund, the money's all there in some big bucket, right? And it's just a matter of line iteming it, so it could be specifically designated, council agrees, $3,000 trees, this year.
From GRF or from park.
Yeah.
Whoever, exactly.
Right.
Yeah, so if they know what we need, then they can figure out which
Correct.
bucket to pull it from.
That's right,
Right.
You just
So we're
think-
not worried about that,
That's
we're just
right.
worried about the ask.
That's right.
Okay.
That's right.
Thank you.
So did we take money from that fund for the current year, or will this be the first year that we take money from it?
Did we take any money from that fund at all? I don't think we did, so.
No, here's, and maybe I'm gonna say this completely wrong, the issue that we had the last time is, planning and zoning had asked for money for an architect later on in the year. It
Yeah.
hadn't been budgeted, it hadn't been anything, and council poo-pooed it,
Except for a small piece.
except for a small piece. If they had already asked for it, and tell me if I'm wrong, but had they asked for $10,000 to be set aside in January, it's not to say that it's overlooked by council, but it's part of the big picture, and as long as council's okay with that big number at the end, they could have had that $10,000 appropriated without,
Rigmarole.
without the drama of it. So if you do it all at the same time, everybody kind of puts in their request, this is what we're looking for. And I think it's a great, and I'm just gonna say, it, I think it's a great idea to have some additional money in the tree fund, the plant fund, that kind of stuff, because it is easy for when Lisa says, hey, we wanna do a couple flowers over here and do this or that, I can say, go for it.
Are you saying that would have been approved?
I'm not saying it would have been approved, but it would
Once
have,
it gets
That wasn't my
approved,
impression.
once it gets approved, it's in the line
It's in
item,
there.
and then what the mayor simply needs to do is write out a PO for a certain amount, up to a certain amount.
right.
But council has to approve it.
They
Not up,
Spend the
only up to a
money.
certain amount, so if it's, so, and again, forget the limit here offhand, but
No,
let's
if-
say it's.
hang on,
$2,000.
if-
Yeah, go ahead.
It's only like 3,000?
Yeah,
Yeah,
whatever
but-
it is.
The initial appropriation is done, and council does a huge budget approval, and that is done at the beginning.
Yep.
So yes, if you were to do it in January, but now you come to me and you say we wanna do flowers, like you said, as long as it's under $3,000, I can do a PO for it, and as long as it was already set aside in January.
Okay,
Yeah.
so the Mary Yost has been done like that? Is
Yes.
that- Okay.
We
So,
haven't spent any money out of that fund for a while.
well, we yeah, we just did.
Just this year?
Mhm.
For what?
Tell me we've been busy, man.
Yeah. They planted, what is that plant called that I love? The bigger one, the tall one, I think they did 3.
Where? Oh, the hydrangeas, yeah,
Ah.
and the Mary Yost garden. Of course.
I need to get out more.
Don't ever underestimate my
Ability to
spending funds.
Yeah.
Hey,
Correct.
she said she wanted some money spent,
Yes.
she wanted something done, so I got more. You're right.
I'm ready.
Well, how much have we spent?
I think that was $60 maybe, or?
A couple $100.
Yeah,
Oh,
probably under 3.
Yeah,
Right.
no, we're not.
And the people that take care of the garden planted them,
right.
so,
But they're all
If you want to buy.
Those are the ones that purchase, they're not, there's no additional revenue.
Like he's expecting you to say thousands or something, like a couple $100.
Oh, I know. I know.
plant material isn't necessarily expensive, it's.
Right.
Well, there's still
If you have to have it.
20,000 left in there.
Oh, yeah, no, yeah, well into.
Yeah. So, essentially, yeah, so you essentially just need to plan out what you wanna make requests for, and that's something you can go through. If they're doing it in 30 days, it gives you another couple meetings to
Yeah.
put something together, and then just say, yeah, we wanna recommend this up, as a vote in the group.
Right.
So can we just say we want the rest of the Mary Yost fund to be appropriate?
Is
Well,
there
I
a tree
just-
fund that exists already? Like that was
But
brought
it's
up,
not,
is there
it's not
one?
so I would just say, as a matter of safety, you just ask for the thing, council will hold that money from where they want to pull from. They think it's appropriate to yank it out of the Yost fund and put it into a line item, then that's where it comes from. That's more accounting stuff, right? It's more important that you simply designate, hey, I want X amount of dollars for this product, I want X amount of dollars for this.
And we need to do
2020.
that by January.
Well, I would say you need to do it next 30 days to have a recommendation up to
Right.
them, because then the budget process for any municipality goes over several months. It gets approved at the end of the year, November, December, so you get it in now, so it gets vetted through the finance committee. It'll be a couple months of vetting, right, and that's just the way it goes.
And so it would be great to
I
talk
don't
about.
think there's a time limit because.
No,
like
we
I'm
can
saying,
change it
there's
anytime.
money in
Yeah.
fund, we got
But-
let's say we got lots of money in different funds.
Yes, so
That's
just
not
remember,
the
it's
issue.
your request for your project, the council will decide what funds to yank those out of and
Right.
appropriate it with the finance director's recommendation, okay?
Are we
No,
using
no.
any of the shrubs, like I mentioned, that have been pulled out and they're gonna be replaced?
So when we're talking shrubs, now we're jumping to another topic there, so on
Well,
that.
sort of.
On that topic, okay, if you recall the last time, we had a discussion about the shrubs. And the shrubs that were dead, you know, are not shrubs because of the way those water lines work, and because we're looking at other plants. They're not replacing shrubs, they're gonna ask them to replace some trees in those areas, you know, trees make more sense. So if they're willing to put in trees, they're gonna put in some trees. But replacing the shrubs are just gonna die again, they're not gonna get properly
They
watered.
already did them.
Yeah, did they put in trees
They're
or shrubs?
So they did here, but they didn't do
No, the shrubs over down, I'm talking about the ones at the lake.
near the lake.
The
So,
lake
okay,
ones.
Okay, yeah.
So now
Which
you've
ones
got,
are talking about?
okay, now you've got a garden that's got a tree,
Yes.
and it had 5, no, it had probably 7. So now you've got 3 dead, 2 dead, they're just gonna leave them like that?
No, they're yanking all the dead stuff. I'm confused.
Yeah, but they're
What
leaving, so they've got this bed that's all supposed to be symmetric and even, and now they're gonna have,
Are
they're
we
gonna leave
talking
the ones
about,
that are
are we
alive.
talking about the entry area? What are we talking
No,
about?
no, no, I'm
What are we
talking
talking
about, specifically right now, I'm talking about the little lake
Okay,
off of Green.
they should be replacing, shrubs are getting pulled because the shrubs aren't gonna survive down there. And we're gonna be doing different things to the lakes. The shrubs are not gonna make it. We had a long discussion out in the field about shrubbery. Shrubbery and mulch at the lakes are bad moves, and I don't know why they did it, they did it,
Yeah.
and originally.
Were we charged for that?
No, we weren't charged for
It's part of their,
Will we be charged for that?
that.
no, it's just part of the plan to build the parks there.
Yeah, so they're throwing stuff in. If you would like to recommend a couple more trees to go back in, by all means, send me an email. I will get off and say, plant a couple more trees, please. And they've been very cooperative about keeping these things changed out.
Okay, so they're leaving the live shrubs,
If they're still alive, yes.
so we could take those
Yes,
and put them someplace else.
yes, you could. If you wanna do that when it gets cold, by all means, we can take them up and take them somewhere else.
And that was what my answer was, whatever you wanna do.
Yes. Agreed. It's gonna be your stuff here soon.
Okay. Well, I mean, that could cut down what our list is, what our budget is, if we're using those.
Just always, there's gonna be years and years of you planning stuff, like this.
Yeah.
For the rest of your life, you can plan stuff.
I would just say, no pun intended, don't get into the weeds at this time. Think about your longer term, you know, what you wanna do and how you wanna allocate money every year, because it's gonna be, once you ask council for, let's say it's 3,000, 5,000, whatever it is for trees or shrubs, it doesn't matter, flowers, plants, it's gonna be a yearly leaving, right? Because you wanna keep that going. That's the only way that you do, also do tree replacement, quite frankly. So, this is what it is.
If they're, I don't know, maybe this is just me, but if they're going to be planting more trees, like a giant weeping willow by one of the ponds would be magnificent. You could put like a bench beside it and be the perfect place to just sit and read a book or
I
whatever.
think that's illegal in Winter Park.
With a willow?
Weeping willow.
I don't.
I think it's one of the, you can't. Now, maybe it's
However,
near.
it's not illegal for us. I will just point that
Oh,
out.
okay,
So if
I mean,
you
I
want, if
think
you really
that
want
would
a
be
willow, we
I
can
mean,
plant a
just
willow.
picture book, you know?
yeah, and it's not, it wouldn't be near,
It was not near a structure.
yeah,
If it's, or, the
Drain.
biggest
I
concern
know,
is the height,
weeping
but
willow.
right.
really, if it's a real thick height.
One of the ones that like,
It's not,
real-
well, it's not really.
that's what I
It's a-
envisioned.
They're
This is a
bad
terrible
on
picture,
getting
but-
into pipes, I mean, you do not want weeping willows.
Okay.
They're
Not your
like-
houses, for sure, or any small pipes, I agree.
But in the, out in the middle of nowhere or whatever, away
Doesn't
from the
matter.
houses, it's okay.
And once we get to green space planning, maybe
Yes.
that'll help you put together some
Yes.
budgeting items,
Yes.
just saying. Sorry, I was skipping ahead.
Okay, so I'll work on, for the next time, like.
Your
specific
wish
ones.
list?
Yeah, just, some line items to talk about, things that we're hoping to, to see happen in 2021. I've been thinking about a lot of things that we can do, and I know we haven't, gone into too much detail about a plan, but, there are, along the paths, we could have little exercise stations, things for kids to do, single movement centers. And there's a lot of stuff that can be done with just the brush that needs to be cut down from around the lakes and at the amphitheater, building things with that, keeping in, we were talking about wanting things natural anyway, using that
Some of the
wood.
stumps and stuff, yeah.
Yeah, using the stumps as, they can hop from one stump to the next, and you have like 5 or 6 right along the path, and it gives the kids something to do as they're taking their evening walk, or, a little jungle gym or something, just along the side. So there are a lot of things that wouldn't cost a whole lot of money, because we've got stuff that needs to come down anyway, and, it's just somebody with a chainsaw,
I know somebody that can do that.
Yeah, so I've been kind of looking into that, and, I'll send, an email with some suggestions. Like, I wouldn't know how to, I guess, determine a cost for that type of thing, since we already have the lumber. We would need some rope and fasteners and whatever, depending on what the project was. It's that kind of thing, I think, that we'll need to, I guess, talk in more detail about, because I just don't have the construction knowledge.
One of the things you might want to consider seriously, especially putting money into it, is the amphitheater is an asset to the village. And the amphitheater really needs attention if you're going to keep it long-term. So you
Yes.
need to start, that is that's a piece that can be on a couple-year basis, but you need some preservation money to start work on that in the near future, and that's something.
And I was waiting to hear back from the state on if they,
Yeah,
and I think things were kind of,
things are a little wackadoo, so I would,
Yeah.
I mean, it would be, if you've got bonus money, that means you can do more in a year, but I think you need to start saying, hey, and put something to council as a placeholder and say, we really need to talk about something for the, and I would put the number for that about 20 grand, and see what council said, maybe they ratchet it back, maybe, but you have to start somewhere.
Well, indications are that there will be a state capital budget this year.
Yes.
And that will likely, work on that will likely start in September and October. Hearing that they're probably gonna introduce it in January, which would give us, starting tomorrow, to start talking to Representative Lightbody.
well, so we did this a year ago.
You did.
And it was, as far as I know, we made it through. We just haven't got confirmation of
Yeah.
anything, because
They're-
Okay.
the last time I
It's
talked to her was
I'm just-
January or February.
Yes,
they're-
I saw the parking lot a week ago before I went on vacation.
Yeah,
So, I mean, the capital bill, which is for, community projects, bricks and mortar construction,
I just sent it to Jen.
is
Yes.
done in even years. Then there's a state operating budget. It's very hard to get money for projects like this in
Yeah,
a state operating budget. The capital budget in a normal year, would be done already. But
Okay.
because of COVID and other things, it got pushed back, so it looks like
So like the end of the year, you think, assigned?
they're saying that, and I'm a lobbyist in state government, so this is what I do.
Helpful.
But they're saying that there likely will be a small one, everybody's pushing for one. They might actually tack it onto the state budget, there's no actual mandate that it be done in even number of years, that's just when they do it.
Oh, June, July, when they had.
When it would actually pass, yeah.
Okay.
But it's, it's a 2-year allocation, it's done out of, bonded funds, so it doesn't really matter what the state's budget looks like, as long as they can issue these bonds and get the funds for them. I say all that to say, Senator Maharoth has got COVID right now, but Representative Lightbody, we should, if the amphitheater is something to do, I don't think it would be unrealistic to try and get $50,000 in, free money from the state. The requirement is that it be used, for physical structure. There are prevailing wage and some other hoops that have to be jumped through. But it is, it's the only free money that comes out. We're a little bit hamstringed by having minority party members, as our senator and state rep. currently, but that's not to say that they can't get a couple of projects.
Yeah.
And, you know, if we could put in 50% of the project and let them know that we've got matching funds.
I think our ask was 75, back in
It was,
November,
yeah, last year.
yeah,
We did that.
and
Yeah,
then,
and that's when they would have been doing this budget,
yeah,
but
yeah,
the
so
the
that's-
bill never materialized.
Yeah, okay.
Okay.
Because of our location, the districting, we're right outside another district.
Mhm.
So we were hoping, she was planning to talk with them and also to talk with Kellogg, Dr. Kellogg, because it would be a great opportunity for outdoor education space. It'd be nice if we had it right now, but a place where they could do creative writing. I mean, we've got the lakes there and the ravine and the amphitheater. And it's something that I envisioned like a 5-step approach. The first thing we need to do is, get pillars stabilized, get the brush out of the way, and then we can work on, just different projects to kind of, if we get the funds or, if we decide to keep moving forward. So things that make it seem complete and not like it's always, just under construction or whatever. And I had, this is the thing that I had pitched to Lightbody back in November, December timeframe.
So, is it normal for, let's say that Vengeance goes through and our 75,000, is it normal in this particular case to say 50% of that in kind? Like,
You've always got a better, everything has to go through Republican leadership. And if you say, we're asking for a hand up instead of a handout, if you say we privately or, the village is chipping in, we've raised 50% of these funds on our own,
yeah,
then that is, right off the bat, they're more likely to say,
then we say that goes in their budget request.
Yes, yeah,
Okay,
definitely.
whatever that
yeah.
number is, so we'll just call it 35 for our purposes, but you gotta have something there for amphitheater restoration.
yeah, and that can always be an intention, if the bill doesn't materialize or we don't make it through the process, then those funds can just sit there and roll over.
They can, or, yeah, either way, or we can start stabilizing, the amphitheater, which needs to be done, I think, regardless, right?
And I did speak with the principal at Hawthorne, asking if they would be willing to be stakeholders, so that we can say, hey, look at, we've got this one school, it's gonna be 3 schools. And I think Lightbody was also thinking of talking to Kellogg for the same reasons. 20, 30, 50, whatever $1,000 isn't gonna mean a whole lot to the school districts, but it's a lot of money to us. So as another source of funding.
And the schools wouldn't be getting those funds in the first place.
Yeah.
So it's, we wouldn't be fighting them for that money.
Yeah, so, and I haven't spoken with her since probably the beginning of the year, maybe February. Yeah, I think it was probably the last time I talked to her, so I don't know where things ended there, but I was hoping that between, the village and the school, and then if we got any money from the state, it'd be pretty easy. But even if none of that happened, there's still just a few things we can do to make it a usable space, and it wouldn't cost a whole lot of money. The brush is just getting,
Yeah.
bigger in diameter by day, but
Yeah, I have a feeling most people wanna see, a good asset like that preserved for the village.
Yeah, I think so too.
Posterity, and it may take a few years if we don't get funding help, but you gotta start somewhere at some point in time. So that seems like a big one for the West.
might cause a bit of a stir, but.
No, I think it's to me, I think it's again, if it doesn't materialize, it goes right back. So, asking
Oh,
for
yeah,
it
yeah,
and
definitely, yeah.
being able to get something done would be nice.
Yeah, and there are, I know that OSU had a grant that, when they were doing an amphitheater. So I know there is some other funding, but who knows what the stipulations are.
Well, and right now, I think the hardest part is trying to find funding that will actually work out for what we need
Yeah, yeah.
with everything going on. It's been a nightmare trying to deal with just the OPWC ones right now. So, but it finally worked.
Cool.
Okay.
Another one that I always heard about, so I live on Jordan.
Uh-huh.
Is there any movement on getting a bike path to connect Jordan to everywhere else?
I paid both of these two because of where we live. I figure if I turn this whole room into Jordan Road, Park Lane Court, we will find a pathway.
So, what's interesting is this has been looked at, and this is one of those other capital projects that should, you have to, right now, because the new subdivision obviously has sidewalks, has pathways, right? So people now get a sample of that. The village obviously was designed in a time when it wasn't, people really didn't want that or think they needed it, right? The times have changed, and now modern design includes pathways. I think minimally, as we looked at this over the years, the easiest get, from everybody's standpoint was you needed something that ties the village together, right? So the primary pathway that you have room to do with the right of way is something that goes from Cleveland all the way down Minerva Lake to State Route 3, right? And then in fact, not far away, as a tie-in, is the Allen Creek pathway. So there are ways to have a multi-jurisdictional buy-in to that, because that then ties a lot of stuff together at once, right? And that's a bit of more of an intricate planning, but the fact of the matter is that we can definitively control what's in our boundaries. Pathway's not cheap, obviously, an 8-foot pathway, asphalt pathway, you've got to go up and down the lake road, it's got to be planned out, probably on the side that doesn't include the fire hydrants, right? That's the most reasonable point. But
I'm just saying a little pathway from Jordan.
Understood, but what I'm saying is, there are places to make that happen. There's a couple of places, you're gonna have to get some cooperative neighbors, because Jordan's kind of an outlier, oddly enough, with the way the original plat was done, because with the original plat, you at least had these non-utilized right-of-ways. If you look at the auditor, you see they're platted, but they're not paved. In fact, a lot of our residents have utilized it for their driveways, right? Well, it's actually right-of-way, but yes, okay. It's just that nobody made that kind of pathway up to Jordan like that, right? There's no unplatted, platted, non-utilized right-of-way, right? So we would have to talk to, there's a couple places where you can make an 8-foot path work, and there's gonna have to be some discussions with the neighbors. So it could be done. Your council, you can make a recommendation, we can do a simple plan recommendation at some point up there. But when you bring it down here, then it hits the road, right?
Doesn't the problem just become where, if you can figure out.
I guess here's where it's at, where I'm gonna go with this, because I'm on Team Eddie here. I've been asking for 3 years,
Yeah.
one of my first.
It's been,
It was way before me. So I guess the number one question is, what do we need to do today to get this moving forward? Because we know that there's a couple potential to where we start reaching out to residents Monday morning.
well, what are we talking about? Is it up, like?
No,
like
there's a
north?
couple,
There
like,
are a couple of places that are wide enough, you have to find the spots between the houses, it's gonna involve resident cooperation.
It
Correct.
doesn't have to be between a house, it could be where Gordon Food is.
well, that's where it
connect to
actually
their-
is.
There's a small road.
But there is, you could do that there if you wanted,
Right.
right? That's fine.
Yeah.
I would suggest, that's one that's probably a low hanging fruit, right, of all these two. So you do that one no matter what. You eventually have to work towards something a little nearer and dearer, right? That's a little deeper into the subdivision. And there are a couple points to where you can make that work, and with cooperative neighbors and some discussion. It may take longer.
Oh, that's and you guys it's like, the thing that I'm thinking about is back around Park Lane, where
All the way to the
Park
end.
Lane ends,
Yeah.
that's,
Next,
That's
yeah,
the way
between, next to my house.
oh.
I mean-
Well, there's some
I got the right
but
guy here.
he's actually thinking all the way at the very end where it dead ends.
So that would be,
But where does
that
that-
both end?
I don't
It
know.
goes to a 55+ senior center.
Yeah, I mean, it
Yeah.
goes right out into that big field, and then beyond that field is the parking lots for the 55+.
What if you cut through,
There's a gas right-of-way that's maintained, but then I think that you're now beyond Wildwood, I think you're beyond
see,
the
that's what I was
cul-de-sac.
thinking, cause you're past East Shore.
So what we would.
Well, what I'm
North Lake
do-
Court.
It would have to.
I think you
That's where I think.
might be, because Park Lane loops up at the end.
Yeah, it does.
Yeah.
And so then you're headed toward 161.
Yeah, at the northern point.
And so then if you were to, U-turn back around, I think you've got a big U-turn to get back around to the court.
Yeah.
Well, see, I know the guy that owns that Doggy Day,
Yeah.
it's a friend of mine, I'm thinking he might give up, that's where I'm, back along there.
Yeah.
I'm not,
I hear
haven't
those
been back
dogs all
there.
the time.
Yeah, I'm just not sure.
What we should do next time, as a planning exercise, is let's get some larger maps printed out for everybody. And then let's brainstorm where everyone thinks from a measurement standpoint that would need to go, right? And then from there, you can get an idea of what's feasible or not feasible. You obviously wanna look at some pathways, least amount of neighbors impacted, right? Biggest distances between homes, inevitably, people aren't gonna be thrilled with if a new path appears. One thing, you buy a house next to a pathway.
Well, yeah, I mean.
Another thing, when you say, the village says, I'm gonna build a pathway by your house.
The other question is, what kind of a pathway are we talking about? You know, if it's a 4-foot footpath, or if it's an 8-foot bike path,
We
and,
should,
or if it's a sidewalk.
Once you put a path in, it should be asphalt probably in all likelihood, just so, because it's easier to maintain and cheaper to do, right? But inevitably, once you put a path in, people will use it, right? And you're gonna have back and forth traffic, pedestrians and bikes, okay? And strollers and big wheels or whatever else, right? So the wider you can make it, the better. But I mean, that may be restricted by what you can do over there. So again, 8 foot would be great, but until we plan it out, we don't know the exact dimension.
And I can tell you, I've talked to Kara, which is right next door to GFS. Not ideal, but would absolutely not be against it, because I did explain that that's where we believe that the actual pathway,
Well, it's a alley.
yeah,
Almost.
it is technically
It
an
stops,
alley,
and
yeah.
then
It
between
does.
GFS, there's
Right.
one property that
It's
you don't
already-
have to buy.
It's already our right of way, so we control that, but it dead ends into,
Somebody's,
it dead ends
Daycare or
into.
something.
There's a little building.
It ends into ABC Home Care and Nursing, oh, it's that one lady. Yeah.
Good luck with that.
So we'd have to work with her, that'd be interesting.
Can you tie into GFS?
You can.
The
You can.
drive behind GFS?
You.
Then you don't have to just.
Well, so again, this is where all the planning comes into, so yes, the tentative answer to all of this is yes, we can work through it, but there's, as we will find, this is a good point in the beginning of Jordan, because lease owners comes to one of our already existing right of ways. That's the simplest pathway, at least to get something done in the short term, right, on that end. So, and then that gets you down to, at least to Wildwood, and, you know.
Yeah, because right now, the only way to get, like, to ride your bike, you have to ride through
On
Poison
Cleveland.
Ivy on Cleveland Avenue.
right,
Yeah, which by the way is another discussion point too, our side of Cleveland, you know, or within the right of way of Cleveland, there should be a pathway, a reasonable pathway that people can walk down, right? So that's a discussion point, I think, with Columbus, it's another discussion point.
Do we maintain the sidewalk on Cleveland?
We do not control, we have up to the right of way of Cleveland, that's the city of Columbus's, okay? So within that right of way is Columbus. We're on the parcel lines, if I remember correctly.
so Donna,
Yes,
So that, on our
Sure,
side of the
this
street,
is
that's a
back
Columbus
on the
right
next
of way?
agenda
yes,
Item
yes, it's not
to
ours.
make sure.
Which
it
irritated
doesn't
us when they did
Yeah.
curb and gutter everywhere else except for our side,
Michael
their
Street
side of the right of way, which is technically their
Yeah, oh, yeah.
time.
Well, that's why I would assume that would be ours, but it's their road, so it's their right of way.
It is, they maintain that road.
I've always heard about that.
So you're more than
What I'd
welcome.
like to see happen.
I've used
And I don't know
the actual cut through to the
is
55 plus center,
where
you
we
can just
have
ride through the
the
grass, that works pretty nice.
Right away.
Yeah, next to-
Notices getting sent out to the homeowner from both sides.
I'm at 28.
Right away,
Uh-huh.
time's
And
coming.
you're looking at your house on the left-hand side
Yeah,
of the
and,
sidewalk, you can
like,
take
the sooner we
right
send
next
that
to
out,
probably behind
There's
us,
one at Woodley.
are fine with people using their driveway.
Woodley
Yeah.
was a road that
Yeah.
people were asking
Yeah.
about changing
Yeah.
from the other, a couple, not long ago.
How she's gonna enter.
And that would be another interesting
Because
one
she
to go
wanted
ahead and
taxes.
just,
Yeah.
Enough, that's enough, and it's, that's where I talked about it.
The one that they bought the new house and the bus fence and.
yes, that's.
So
Yeah.
there's Boy Scout, and he was got to the top there, and they're like,
Yeah, it was just a
Well,
grass path, right?
it kind of came on the driveway and then went from the driveway
Right.
to the other driveway,
Okay.
the path.
Uh,
But there was a cut through.
Yeah, I know, we
Well,
used
that's
it,
a,
so that would be another
that's
interesting
a
one.
right of way.
So you're saying to do an
A real one.
Yeah.
I think it would be nice to do a couple of real ones that people could
Yeah.
actually use, because
Well,
again,
that was a Boy Scout project that,
yeah, it's
Yeah.
really
They
neat.
actually did a great job.
yeah,
It's still, how long ago was that?
So it would
It's
be
still-
good to,
it's only been 4 years maybe?
3, 4 years, yeah, 4 years, yeah.
Yeah.
well, just so you guys know, we have another Eagle Scout
Stop
project
going.
that I believe they're gonna be reaching out to me, I was told they're gonna reach out to me, so I've got my fingers crossed. Cause I love that,
Do they have a project in mind?
I don't think so.
Because I might not have the project.
Okay, I'll see if I can,
Okay. We're just talking
All
about
right.
it.
okay,
So,
okay.
and so we were kind of chatting over here, you know, just along with the paths, would it be possible to send letters to everyone on both sides of the right of way that we haven't done anything with? Just kind of saying,
Well,
hey, that's gonna change?
so
By the way.
We don't wanna get the hornet's nest riled up until there's actually something.
Oh, no, we've been ready for 3 years.
I know.
So I guess, I mean,
But
I
you
think the hornet's nest needs to
Are
be
you,
ready.
wait a minute, you
No,
talking?
no, what are we talking about?
I'm saying everybody,
You know, like Westbridge and all
There's
of
like
those-
3 or 4 of them.
Yeah, all
You're
of the
talking
right of ways
about-
that haven't been utilized.
I think we need to
Oh,
have a plan to
Okay,
do it
yeah,
first.
so a couple things. So, yes, well, I agree with
I already
you.
have my plan.
So-
You guys are slow in the planning here.
So
My
this
plan
much
is,
like, if I can point out, this is much like the issue we have with curbs or lack thereof, when people put curbs in our right of way, and then how they handle the aprons, which are sometimes not so shoddy. And then finally, we have where people have turned their driveways, have paved or put down concrete within the unutilized right of way.
Right.
Still ours. I mean, in fact, you can go step on, like I can go sit on Diane's property, because she's in the right of way there with part of her thing.
Side of
Just
her house.
Hang out right there all day long, and it's right of way, it's public, right? And I had explained that to them some years ago when they were gonna do some changes, I'm like, this is right of way actually, and they're like, what? So the thing is that if your intent is to tell all those people they can't use it anymore, there's gonna be a pathway, that's a different discussion, because a lot of them, that's their primary access point to their garage. In fact, in
Yeah, you
those
can't.
days, the garages were built off of those, I think with the intent to pave, but this is so long ago, there's no record of what the intent was at that time. I can just guess that the developer decided, you know what, I'm not gonna spend the money on the paving, that's the only thing I can say, and then the village didn't bother, must have gone along with it, right? And what they did is, instead of having the driveways come off what should be a paved road, they just took it up to where the actual asphalt was, which is weird,
Yeah.
different. You don't see it too often, but that's what's been done here, so we have to survey those houses, a lot of them.
and what would the
And where do they-
benefit be other than pissing people off?
Yeah, we have to be,
Right.
so if we're gonna do pathways, it's different, because again, you have to plan it out. In some cases, it'll work just fine, but in cases where we've got problems where people have no other access to their garage, sometimes it's their only garage access point, like we've looked at them.
Most of them, that is.
Yeah, and that's gonna be a problem that we'll have to,
So-
village,
Yeah,
everyone.
if the point is to get an access from Jordan Park Lane to the rest of the village,
We focus on
then I
that.
think, yeah, we identify that, focus on that, and then if there is a right of way, you should notify those folks. But as far as saying everybody in the village who's in a right of way, you're on notice now, I
Yeah,
think that's just,
that's
you
what
know,
I mean.
kicking a bear.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Or, I mean, if that's the case, if you've got garages kind of going to nowhere,
we'll look
why
at the
not?
one, we'll look at the one at
They
Wood
don't
Lake.
go to nowhere, it's a problem.
Well, you know what I mean, like, why not put the
Well-
road there, if that's what it was intended
Understood,
to be.
but roadway complete, so now we have a different conversation.
Yeah, that's,
Complete
Yeah.
roadway construction is a multi-million-dollar project to connect all of those areas. Probably not at this time what the village intends to do, pathway connection is a much more reasonable thing between those, they're already there and they do connect the roadways, right? And I think that's a smart thing where you can do it, so I think you've
There
got
must be
your.
way more than I'm aware of, cause I'm
Yeah.
only aware of 2 of them over there, and all they
No,
need
there's
is
a
a
lot.
little pathway,
No,
like, I
there's a
don't.
lot. And in fact, by Diane's house as an example,
yeah.
it's just ending at a big drainage, dump right there, so that would have to be, that infrastructure
Where's that
would
one
be
at?
relocated, that's our
Beside
infrastructure
Diane's
too.
house? In between Diane and Cicely's house?
Yeah.
That's a right of way. I don't know what road, I don't know if they planned on building a bridge across the ravine
Huh.
at some
Yeah,
time.
but it's-
I don't
Yeah,
know where that one is.
Sometimes just scroll through the auditor's map and you'll see all of these, with the aerial, and you can see the lines of where the plat goes with dedicated right of way, but it's not utilized, we didn't.
Okay, so back to the same question, what is step 1 to move forward, getting us a pathway from
So
Jordan
next-
Road?
Next meeting, let's have maps, let's talk about
Perfect.
that, and let's go through the steps and what we need to do. That's
You
the
got
way-
that on my agenda?
I do.
Rock on.
Is it something we can do before then?
I would say just go walk over there and look at it, so. go
And
on
I've
the
walked
GIS,
Kara's property.
Get an idea of what's there visually, right, because you can
And
only so much shows up on the map. That's what I
there's
recommend.
I think
fences
there's a
on
little
Wildwood
building in there, some
that,
kind of a
that may have to,
garage or
There
something.
is, there is a small house in the front, but the back
Don't
part
ask.
of the property ABC is
Where?
open.
Where?
And then there's
No.
GFS to the north of that.
cause we were thinking about doing the whole thing, and then we didn't like it, and it's another topic. We're just waiting, if I make it really bad, we'll get a new building. I'm just kidding.
So, and then at the same time, we can also look at the back end of Jordan, you can do both.
That's where I'm going, Park Lane,
Yeah.
that's what I'm gonna do.
That's gonna be trickier, but still,
Well, we can all walk
Discuss.
home the same way if you
Yeah.
want.
yeah. Check it out.
Walk home.
Pardon?
I said, is it a walk home? Is that what you said?
Did you walk
Yeah.
today? Oh, yeah, no, I'm too lazy for that.
Not if you take my cut through.
Which one? Yeah, that's true. Okay, well, I cut through, yeah, pretty much your house, yeah.
Yeah.
That's where we cut through.
Where's your house?
All the way down Park Lane.
Which one?
Next to the Carfagnas, the old Volpe house, depending on how long you've been here.
Yeah, I think I know which one. Next to Gina's, to
Yeah.
the, what, north?
To the left of Gina's if you're looking at it.
Okay, okay.
And we've got a sidewalk that gets you to the back of the house, and then you just cut through a yard, and then the folks who live behind us.
Through Rena's yard?
No, we're like four houses down from where we're done.
Somebody told me Joe Curl has a
Cut
cut
through.
through by his.
That's usually where we go through. We go through Joe's yard.
Joe's got a lot of issues on his property.
Yeah.
Yeah, he
So
does.
would that be a good spot for?
I don't know that it's, I mean,
There's a,
we've got a sidewalk that gets to the backyard, and then we
Oh, look
cut
at him.
through to a driveway, but I don't think that. No, I mean, there's not enough room for 8 feet without using the driveway from the folks behind us,
We have to plan it out, see what we can do, because
and 8 feet would get,
it's very different when you have some foot traffic versus a pathway and lots of foot traffic.
and there would be a ton.
Yes.
Like, I mean, they would vouch for, I'm not the only one that walks on my street. In the mornings, there's anywhere from,
there's 6 regular walkers in every single day.
at least, yeah.
Wow.
Is that counting the little guy,
So your
like
house is on the end of
the adorable guy?
Toward the end, 2811.
The adorable guy.
There is an adorable guy that wears a long coat every day, like,
Dan.
yeah, he's awesome.
Yeah.
He's awesome.
Plus a new resident.
Does he know shopping?
And we have a new resident that's gonna be moving in that literally called just to talk about pathways to get off Jordan Road, because they told them that I walked constantly, that there had to be a way.
And their friends live over here, so they wanted to.
That's funny.
So,
It should be.
oh, yeah,
It
no,
should have been years ago, yeah.
so, okay, so it's on the agenda, we're moving on. Thanks for bringing that up, because I always look like a bad person bringing it up.
Well, let's just do something about it this time.
Exactly, that's why I said, let's get it on the agenda, we're not gonna talk about it anymore.
So it'll be on the agenda. The next thing is the pool ordinance, and I don't know, I mean, we can't really vote on anything tonight, so I don't know if we want to just table that discussion for the next time,
Jason
but I
is
know
here, do
Jason's
you want,
here.
yeah, any questions, I would say, he literally came here just for this.
Okay.
Well, not really, to introduce himself, so everybody knows him. I mean, if I really made him come here just to like, hey, we're gonna table it, have a nice night.
Can you bring us up to speed? I mean, what, on the.
So as far as the commission, yeah, I don't know if you wanna just intro it, we can jump in.
Yeah, so, a lot of what's currently in our code is from 1960, relating to pools, and, you know, I was talking with Jason earlier, and there've been some, I guess, changes in the language. One of the biggest issues that we have is the inflatable above-ground pools, well, not just the inflatable ones, but above-ground pools, and how to manage those.
Temporary pools.
Yeah, temporary, sort of.
They're called on-ground pools, so.
Yeah,
the
yeah,
official, like, zoning name of it now
What
is
is it?
on-ground pools.
Yeah.
As opposed to above ground, it's
And
just
is
on
it-
ground now? Or
Yeah,
they
so
do?
there's a definition for it, and I would recommend putting that that definition in your code. I know some people don't want them permitted, which, whatever, I mean, that's great,
You know, that brings up, because I think, aren't above ground pools prohibited in the new development?
They are, so above ground pools mean the ones that are permanent, right? They relate to the permanence, with the, I'm assuming the ground, on ground pools are temporary in nature.
yeah, so, I mean, there's really nothing, I mean, unless you wanna follow the above ground on that.
Yeah.
So,
So they
you're
are
saying that
different.
there's above ground and
Above
on
ground is
ground?
different from on ground.
Yeah,
There's two different-
on ground,
On ground definition is-
or in ground.
On grounds are allowed,
Yeah, on ground would be seen
unless
as,
we disallow
yeah,
it.
because the above ground refers to, in my experience, has always referred for long periods of time.
It's a permanent structure, so.
So
it's-
permanent, yeah,
And those are prohibited in the village?
in the new zone.
No,
Okay.
Is that, what, okay, so we used to have one that you would walk up the 5 steps.
yours would be an above ground pool.
Even though
Your
the 8
grandfather
foot,
had.
but even though it was an 8 foot deep, so that was all in ground, so the top part was above ground.
How far above ground was it? Like,
It was,
I mean, you
okay,
have
so
to
we
measure-
had
You
a
had to
4,
go
here's
up.
the quick answer, it was a
Yeah,
4 foot
so-
to 8 foot. And you
So-
were probably about 3 foot off the ground,
Yeah.
so was that considered above?
Yeah, above ground.
So they're allowed in the old part because they're
Classic
grandfathered, or
No,
they're
no,
just
I
allowed?
don't think the code prohibits above ground in the old section, right?
Mm-mm.
No, so you're just allowed to have, you wanna put above ground in the old section, classic section?
But you can't in the new section.
So this goes back to the same,
Because,
Because they wrote that into the new development text.
and that was an argument that we had the last time.
Because they didn't want.
Yeah, that we would like to make things
Most of the
cohesive.
have
Yeah.
gotten rid of them,
We
so
don't
Okay.
bring that up
when
to
they adopted it, they just didn't have it in there.
got it, that makes sense, just trying to figure out the
Mhm.
rationale.
Talk about next week.
Okay.
Well, it would be nice though.
But the real issue with the pools is the fencing that's required for the pools. That's the touchy subject from my standpoint.
Okay.
Is that, you know, the way the rules are is that any pool above 2 feet needs to have a fence around it. The way our code currently reads, needs to have a fence and a gate. I mean, well, there's other rules, but that's the big one, is the fencing. And we've got people that have had, you know, pools up, that are only like 30 inches, maybe 36 inches, and those require fencing. So that's what we're trying to decide is what type of requirements we wanna have for fencing.
Obviously,
That's the big
Yeah.
sticking point.
If you already have a fence around your house, obviously it's within the fence, you've met
Right.
that requirement. But the fencing around pools is obviously there for, it's been there a long time, the building code is strictly for safety purposes,
Right.
for toddler or falling and drowning in your pool from another area.
Right.
So, but what places have made people do, is buy a temporary fence and put it around, you know, one of these on-ground pools.
Which can be ugly.
Yeah, which can be, yeah, not so nice looking.
Do we have like, I don't know, sister villages, best practice villages, do we have folks?
We've started looking at other
Yeah.
codes.
Like, yeah, are there other folks that
The
we look to
one,
that
the
have
one
figured
code
this
that
out?
comes close to what I'm shooting for here is that at Columbus, if your pool is 4 feet high, then you don't need to have a fence.
Okay.
If it, once it gets up to 4 feet, but it would be those pools in between 2 foot and 4 foot in Columbus that would require the fencing. And what I'm trying to shoot for is to get it down to 36 inches. And my reason for that is that, you know, there's not a lot of people that put 4 foot above ground pools in. I mean, I've seen a few.
You're
Most
talking
of them-
about the wall as opposed to the water?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Right, okay.
Yeah, and I'm hoping that we could get it down to 36 inches, because I think most of the pools you see that are up in Minerva Park are that size, they're not the big 4 foot ones. And I really, you know, the whole key, or the reason for the fencing is to keep people from accidentally falling in there. And in my opinion, the 36 inch pool, you know, is high enough to prevent some kids from falling in.
How high does
As
the
long as
fence
it
have
has
to be?
removable ladder, right?
And, yeah, the removable ladder too.
Yeah,
is
how high
the-
does the fence have to be?
Well, our code says 42 inches, but we could make it whatever.
Right.
But I think that's what for some reason, it's a 42 in our code.
What's your take?
So the fence is shorter than the wall of the pool, if we go 4 foot.
Well,
You're gonna find every code that has
Well,
any 2 foot
we're
structure
redoing
is
it.
gonna have to require a protective barrier. That is what the International Code Council language is, and that's what everybody uses. And then, yep, Columbus has the 4 foot or 5 foot, whatever it was, 4 foot. That they didn't have to have the protective barrier as long as it had a removable ladder.
Or you had to put a fence around the,
Yeah.
That was that was a,
something,
ladder.
it was weird, yeah. Is that
Well,
what-
no, I think
some-
if you don't have a removable ladder, then you gotta build a fence around the entry, however you get in.
With a latch and all that, you can't, yeah, to where somebody couldn't get up the stairs still.
And then maybe, once you guys get your emails, cause didn't you put together,
Yeah.
like a rough draft or something? And maybe if you saw that and, you know, cause I think that's real close to what I'm shooting for.
and then you took out the building inspector thing out of it.
Oh, yeah.
Or you.
Well, yeah,
Or
well,
you
that's a
just
whole
rewrite the
nother.
whole thing. You
Yeah,
just rewrite the whole
she
thing.
redid the whole thing,
Okay.
yeah.
Yeah, cause that honestly doesn't need to be in there.
Yeah, if you could share that with us.
As soon as I have their emails, I'll forward them to everybody, so everybody can put them on the email chain.
Okay, good.
I'm hoping it's tomorrow.
Yay.
So define your on-ground definition, which I gave you the definition in your email.
Okay,
Um,
yeah, I'll make sure I
and
include
then
that.
if you wanna make those exempt from permitting, if you guys think that doesn't need permits for it, just as long as you say follow, but they have to follow the other regulations of the code.
Yeah.
So we'll exempt the permits if that's what you guys want, cause I mean, I think that's ridiculous, getting a permit every single year to
Have it too
Right.
big.
to get a temp to blow up a pool. As long as everything else is followed.
So are we planning on keeping the rules different in the old part and the new part, or?
This would
You just
apply-
had to open up that can of worms, didn't you?
Yeah,
So that's
so
what you guys just talked about.
That's a whole nother discussion.
That's where we were up here whispering, going, don't do it.
What's that?
are you referring just to the pools?
Yeah, well, I mean, this was the one example, but.
The pools are, the other example is no chain link in the new subdivision too. So there are, reasons for that, and, obviously the village can discuss if they want to, we allow chain link in there, but it's not really the most
It would
recommended.
be my
It looks nicer
preference.
without.
Oh, I don't think as restrictive as they are.
Yeah,
That's just me.
so if you impose a
And then it
pool
would be
ordinance,
Yeah.
except for the above ground restriction on the permanent structure, the on ground structures are still, everything is the same, right, between the two sections.
Do we know how many above-ground pools exist in the old section?
No, we'd have to go through
I think
aerial
we've
and
heard-
maybe count.
I think I was the
No,
only
no, no,
one,
I think maybe-
very
Maybe
few.
that's
Does
kind of
Dave
what I'm-
Wade's
what I'm-
We
Did
have
you
to
know,
look.
didn't Dave
No, no,
Way
no,
have a
there's, you know,
above ground
If
pool?
if there's two and you
It was in ground?
grandfather them,
They eventually, the
I think
above ground
it's
is
still
problematic, 'cause they.
Yeah, well, I would hope no.
Why would you take it out?
The one that's on Lakewood
The
is in
grounds are better
brown.
to have, I have a whole, just they are.
I was about to say, I think your grandfathers were the
Yeah.
last one in
Yeah, I
the
don't know
village.
of any.
there would be a thought to
Yeah.
grandfathering those parcels
They
in.
would, yeah, but automatically there'd be a non-conforming,
A few people with in-grounds.
Yeah, I don't
You know,
know
eventually,
any.
Yeah,
eventually someone's
I don't
gonna
know
move in who says, I
any
don't wanna deal with this.
above.
above."
They pull it apart and then it's.
And then you would have the same,
Yeah,
Yeah.
this, same rules for everybody.
agreed?
I guess I shouldn't say that. Isn't that what the Scioto Valley pools are then? That everybody has? That's what my aunt and uncle have. They have one of those, or is that
Installs them, a lot of them, I mean, yeah, they.
Or is
they
that
have a yard full of them.
on ground?
That's an above ground, when it's a
have
when it's a
one?
permanent,
My aunt and uncle have one that's like a, and I don't, maybe it's not a Scioto Valley one, but it's one of those big, huge round ones that they build a deck all the way around.
That's an above ground.
That isn't above ground. And those are like, I know several people that have those pools, not in the village, but
Yeah.
I'm surprised we don't have
In-ground,
any
the
of
water's
those.
gonna be below.
In ground I know.
Yep.
It's the above ground and the on ground, but.
By and large, on ground is seasonal and above ground is permanent.
That's what I gotta write.
Okay. We got the trees in the old section,
Yeah.
nobody wants a pool.
Exactly.
We'll dump a lot of stuff in you gotta constantly skin your pool, that's for
Yeah.
sure.
We didn't have any trees, it
We've
was
got an
great.
8-foot fountain in the backyard that.
which there's, while we're talking about pools, is that it's striking me funny that if you read the code, every pool has to be covered from October to April. But we don't cover our pool.
Is that in the property, that's in the property maintenance, the 1480, right?
I think so. It's
It's
not
not
in the
the
pool. It's
You
not
wanna
in
know
the
why we
pool
don't have it
code.
covered?
It's in 1480,
That would be
yeah.
expensive.
I mean, it's drained though, right?
Yeah.
What's that?
It's drained, but not covered?
Mm-mm.
Well, if it's drained, it has to be covered, period.
Yeah.
Oh,
Just
okay.
say-
If it's not, even if it's full, it has to be covered, well, it doesn't say even if it's full, but they all have to be covered from
Okay.
October through April. And that's one of those things that it's in our code, but we don't do it at our pool. You know, it's like, I don't know, I don't know that anybody's ever been called out on not covering their pool, you know?
Yeah.
There's only a few of them, but that's a whole nother issue, I guess.
Infiltration, stagnant water, things like that becomes an issue, so you'd want that filtration requirement in your code too.
Yeah, and that's in the existing code.
Yeah, that's awesome.
And a lot of this is in the property maintenance code as well. So look at the property maintenance code.
Yeah, so I pulled from the, Ohio pulls from the property maintenance code, right?
Ohio, the property maintenance code of Ohio, or property maintenance code is the international code for property maintenance, and everyone adopts that.
Okay, that's what I was
Not
thinking.
everyone, but
Yeah.
mostly everyone adopts that.
Yeah, so I had pulled from, I pulled from the ORC and then looked at, Columbus, and then there were a few other municipalities around, the Cleveland area that had some words that I thought might be helpful to have, that I threw in there, but I linked everything that I added to it, and then, you know, so. I'll make sure you guys get a copy of that.
Thanks.
Okay, so,
Alright.
I think we kind of covered the, well, kind of, but not, the basketball court improvements, along with the maintenance and budget things. I think we kind of just need to figure out what we want to spend money on. But I know the last time we talked about putting benches over there, possibly, or even we had talked about using bamboo, you know, like in planters or something, along the backside of the court, just to give a little bit of space between some of the complaining neighbors and the people that are on the court.
And I'm not even thinking that it would be horrible to do at the edge of our line, going where the new houses are that way. So not only to block the old section, but then past that double lot, if that makes sense.
Yeah. So I think,
So-
you know, it will be helpful here too, so another map to produce, because that way everyone can orient and talk about the same thing. Let's bring that in, maybe talk about what to do there next time.
Because that would definitely be some of those, just,
Maps.
again, just
You're
some,
talking to the south of the court.
I don't do north and south.
No, no, no.
When you pull up to the, when you go from the old development, you
side.
go through the little way, and then the basketball court is right here, and then you
Yeah.
turn this way. We own that basketball court and then that entire
Yeah,
lot next
The
to it.
west side, that's to the south, but the west side is what obviously, you know, there faces the classic area where most people aren't happy with.
There is some tree lane still.
There is.
Shrub. You could sort of blend,
Yeah.
Going out towards the street a little bit is what I would wanna do.
towards.
Yeah, not in the
towards
backyard, no.
Maplewood,
No,
towards the old part of the road.
like,
It would be along the Maplewood, it would be at an angle there and along,
okay,
towards the Maplewood side.
this is Maplewood. You're gonna love my drawing.
That's beautiful.
This is Maplewood. So I turn here and here's the basketball court. And then here's the empty field. And then this is the first house that is a new MI house.
Yeah.
So this is the empty lot, just some along this way for them to block the noise and the, you know, whatever. So we would do
Yeah, I
it.
was wondering about that the other day when I was there,
Yeah.
like if they had any issues or,
Some of them are just now moving in.
yeah.
So I don't think they've been there. So I like to basically block the back side a little bit more shade, a little bit more, and then along that one
Between the
side.
shelter house and the next house.
Exactly.
You can tell.
Oh, I'm trying to get myself in a lot of trouble. Again, I realize there were, you know, I went over there today, there was probably 3 cars, there was only 3 cars today, maybe 4. But yeah, I think if we did it some sort of shelter house or whatever, you're gonna just overload.
The residents, there.
Nah, you're not.
No parking.
And again, I think that should be a no parking period on either side. That's my opinion.
Yep.
Opinion.
Oh, I
Opinion.
saw people
Now,
do
somebody
that.
else didn't agree with me, and you wanna know what they didn't agree with? At least if you have cars parked on one side, it will slow people down through there. They had a valid point.
That works down by me.
So, I'm
Only
not,
one road can get through.
yeah, so I mean, that is something, Jiminy Christmas, that is something to think about. I mean, to me, kids running through there and this and that, I mean, to me, having those cars there just blocks.
The vision.
Yeah,
The other item you could do is, I think they're called, I remember the circades, they come out like a bump.
Yeah.
You can do that on the front and the back end, because all of this is short.
right,
The vision is good, you can make it no parking in between, so you can stripe it out or put.
Right.
So in that way, there's a field of vision, you know, you can put, kids can park their bikes there, right? You can
Right.
put Bike racks
Right.
in there and stuff, so vehicles couldn't park there, but they would go back and forth and they'd slow down because of the ends, you know,
Are you talking about where they
To
have
make
like
a
a
list.
physical,
Yeah.
like plants or something
It's,
there?
well, it could be a plant, it could just
Didn't
be a
even until
curb
it's
coming
ready.
out.
Right.
Except for I
They
should
do
have
that in
access to
Strawberry
bikes
Farms?
Yep.
in the.
They have some of those,
And
but
that
I would
could
say,
go
you don't need to, if you put plants and also blocks the vision, I would say leave them
Well,
alone.
right, but
So
that's what
of
you're
course-
talking
Yes.
about, okay.
Yeah.
What do they call that?
If I'm using the right term, chicanes, I can't,
All right.
tell me, I have to look.
I've learned a couple things today, on-ground pools and chicanes.
Yeah, so that may not be the right term, but it's something in the back of my head,
You know
so
how it's
we can look
spelled?
it up.
Now you're pushing it. Isn't that a nice drawing? Can you tell that that's Maplewood, not Arista?
Looks like Greek to me.
I know what it was.
I knew exactly what you were talking about.
All right.
That's my kind of drawing. I did
Art
that.
class tomorrow at 11.
Okay, that's what's on the agenda.
They are culture games, they're little bumps.
So yeah, I think there's so much that we can do with the basketball court.
You can do it multiple ways.
But again, I think that's one of those things that, you know, we need to get to the point we're not talking about it anymore and we're doing it.
Yeah, how are you handling what's happening?
I have been over there numerous times. Today there was 4 cars. First off, I will start by saying there have been a couple people ticketed over there. I'll make this quick, just for the Facebook post.
Ticketed for?
Speeding.
Okay.
That has happened. That said, nobody on that side we've not issued a ticket going anywhere near what people are claiming they're going. Any speeding should not be tolerated. I understand that, so I'm not justifying the fact that they're speeding in the mid-30s is as good as it gets. Over here, we're getting 40, 45 plus.
Yeah.
So the basketball court is not the reason that people are speeding. People are speeding because they're speeding. They're gonna speed whether they're going to the pool or wherever they're going. Anyways, that's my 2 bits on the speeding. The officers have been sitting there days on end. Again, how somebody's going 60 miles an hour when we had 2 officers over there at the same time, not really sure, and then it's happened apparently twice.
Okay, are you saying people are making it up? Or are you saying?
No, I think they're
They're
speeding.
exaggerating.
I think they're speeding,
It looks
but I
like-
do not believe that anybody is going anywhere near it, which is, even mid-30s is too bad.
That's what I didn't even.
Mid-30s is still too bad. So the officers are ticketing, they are also warning, because I don't want to imply that every single person that's speeding over there, I mean, let's just be real. We give warnings in numerous places, but if they are going an excessive speed, they are getting a ticket. Trash, same thing. I basically go over there and I give them the same spiel. Hey, stop playing for a minute. Throw away your trash, or else I'm gonna take the hoops down. I'm nice about it, you know. Throw away your trash, or we're taking the hoops down. You guys have 104 you guys are popular on our Facebook page. I said they're posting your guys' license plates, because they are, which I think is out of line, but anyways. And I flat out tell them.
See that?
I mean, you guys should all know that I'm as animated as I am in here. So no, I go over there and I say, you gotta throw away your trash or they're gonna take your hoops down. And then if you guys are speeding through here, the speed limit's 25, understand, you're gonna get a ticket and your ticket's $150. So don't speed. And I said, and by the way, how many of your friends already got one? And then they usually start laughing.
How many friends what?
Already got one,
Oh,
because there's been several.
so are you going to take the hoops down and continue?
No, they're kids. I go to Hoover and run Hoover stairs, and honestly, every single day, adults are leaving them down there too. And it happens a lot.
I'd see it at
So-
the football games that I go to.
They
when-
make announcements every
You know,
night when you leave the football game, and it's for adults, because the adults are the ones watching the games. The adults are they have to make an announcement, please, everybody get your trash and throw it away. I mean, people
And
are
then
just.
they don't even do it, and then no one does anything, you know, could you please, and
And then everybody's like, yeah. I don't agree with it. I mean, I would be the first to say I don't agree with it, but I guess it's job security, and if we have to
That's
continue
what I
to
have to
have Ryan
say.
go over there, or, you know, station somebody over there every single morning, if I have to do it at 9 to 5, I mean, I think that people don't realize that it's going on down at the pool just as much, just because John's not complaining about it.
Yeah.
John will be the first to tell you that the lifeguards and them clean up the trash after people leave quite a bit.
Every time,
I don't wanna say every time, and it's not every person, cause I do not leave trash.
sorry.
Just for the record, I'm not gonna say I've never done it, but I will tell you, I don't leave trash down there, but again, people are bashing them over at the basketball court, but I'm gonna start going and taking pictures down at the pool of adults leaving and doing the same thing, just to give people our perspective, cause it is going on down at the pool, and it is not just
It's
kids.
just people.
People suck,
People.
Yeah,
People,
that's it,
that's true.
people are mean.
it is.
So, but anyways, it is being addressed, the officers are doing everything they can, there are several adults that are going and talking to the kids, Tony Pinter's one, Tony Grosh is one. So there are a lot of people that are going over there talking to them, and right now, you know, and not everybody wants benches and all that kind of stuff. That said, it doesn't mean that we're not gonna do it. We are gonna get a list of rules and things like that, kids aren't gonna read it, I do totally agree with that, but at least if we have them up there, I've told them to watch the cuss words, I've told him all that kind of stuff, and I heard a 4-letter word is not at me, as soon as I left, so, you know, that went in one ear and out the other, and I'm not making fun of it, I'm just saying they're, you know,
Probably my kids.
yeah, so, there you go.
Yeah, could've been
Done.
mine, well, he doesn't play basketball, but.
Green space.
I think we pretty much
I think we've
covered all
already,
I do
the
too.
topics.
I think we are fine, I did this with council the other day, we're done talking about a lot of these things, I think we've got to come up with an actual plan, bring
Did
the
I-
maps
Did I
again.
send you, an email with links to, like, just for the basketball court? I can't remember if I actually sent that or if
I
I just
don't
drafted it.
Feel like it.
Okay,
If you did, send it to me again.
okay, because, what I was thinking, specifically for that, we talked about maybe doing some kind of clumping bamboo that
Yeah.
is just straight up in planters, but then space them far enough so that in between the planters, you could put a bench there.
I gotta say, I hate that idea.
Or,
I mean, what-
it's like.
what do we need planters for is what I'm,
You have
is
to try.
that what you're?
Bamboo is crazy invasive and impossible to
Yeah,
kill.
it turns, yeah, most.
I think we should do shrubs.
So what we're saying, we have to control, either you do it in the ground. you
Could it
gotta-
be like below
I
ground?
don't
You
care
have
what
to
we
do
use,
below,
I
it's
just
like
want
what's
it done.
underneath, you
Right.
gotta do like 2 feet under, it's,
You got it on
they're-
it.
they're-
But it's something that could be,
and-
it wouldn't be
You've
above,
learned
you
that about
do it
me.
They'll
below
grow,
ground.
they'll also go over and grow out that way too. You gotta watch
Well,
them.
we got weed eaters.
Just been
I mean, I
slow.
know,
You
I,
cannot kill bamboo.
well, there's smaller,
Actually, thank you.
there's different
but I
types of
don't- I don't
bamboo,
like
because I've been at one house, I mean, I've seen,
There are different
you know,
species. It's requires some research, which, but it
Or
requires
like
proper.
looking for something.
oh, I know, I was at a house where it's out
Block out
of
the
control.
Yeah, and the speed that it grows, and it'll go underground, and you won't see it, and 8 feet away, you'll get this little soldier up, and then it's like, I've got like, you know,
Well, maybe I'm gonna regret bringing up bamboo.
Well, if it's done properly, it's quick and it'll get you the barrier you want
yeah.
very
Well,
fast,
Still be able to see.
but it will require.
You ever decide you don't want that barrier?
You'll still have
Right.
view.
You gotta do.
I'm gonna go with the people that want native plants and all that kind of stuff are not gonna be fans.
Well,
bamboo?
But the nice, you can put the native plants in the front of it, or, right, so you can have a row of bamboo for the barrier.
I don't know what the bad rap is with non-native plants, that's what
Like what would
I'm
you-
trying to understand.
You guys are
why-
all talking to the wrong person, I don't care what we plant, just as long as it blocks out the, here.
That's what I'm saying, if it's native or not native,
Right, but
Good plants and there's bad.
we're being recorded and I'm really gonna say that, tell Diane that and you're gonna get your head chopped
Yeah,
off.
Well, that's me and Diana.
You know how that is.
Bamboo is a good
And
thing.
honestly, all
Because
those,
if you
all
put rubber
those
on each
new
one of the line,
shrubs
that's
that
the
they
gap,
put in,
right?
that
That's the
really
problem.
should have been native too.
Not bamboo.
I wish I would've brought that up.
I couldn't tell you the difference between one or the other, so
Yeah,
that's why I don't,
Very good.
I stay out of those topics.
so you will.
Okay, so maps next time and.
I just wanna ask, like, get into the next ordinance or review.
Yeah, tell us what we're reviewing.
Yeah,
This
yeah,
is-
so do we
Well,
wanna talk about
here's the new
fences?
one that's come to my attention.
Oh, boy.
It's the weed ordinance.
Oh, yeah.
This is, we haven't talked since our,
No, we haven't, but
Our
well, I
last
just know it
council.
was brought up the other day.
the weed, it's all comes down for me in the description of what plant life is. You know, it took the village here a year to come up with our weed ordinance that we've got now.
Yep.
And after talk with our council members, because there's a house that there's problems with some weeds. Well, they seem to feel that the way the code is written, that if it's a native plant, it doesn't need to get cut down. That's why
Again, everybody's talking to me like I understand the difference between a plant
Well,
and
what
weed.
I'm saying is what they were trying to say the other day in the meeting is what I'm trying to.
And just for the record, I have never had a complaint on that house.
Yeah,
I
he
do
has
know-
not.
I do know about it, but please do not make assumptions that I handled the complaint
Yeah,
here.
he has
Because
not
you-
had a complaint. That was
because
Lynn.
You did say my name and you made an assumption, you said, I assumed,
Okay, I made an assumption, and I said I assumed, okay.
right, that's not really.
But, then who said that there weren't any code violations?
I don't know how far.
No,
she said-
Diane and them,
she said
Diane's the
that
one that they all just
The
assumed.
email said that,
The
she
email
said
said
She
that.
said that in the email,
Oh, I didn't.
but I don't know, and she said it's been happening for 10 years, so
Yes.
I don't know. Even when I was here last time, no one's made
Here's
an
the-
official complaint about it.
The-
I do know,
Can you fill us in on what?
So there's a property
Oh, yeah.
that is okay, so here's what I know about it. Lynn had received numerous complaints about a specific property. I know that, I'm not throwing anybody under the bus, it's a fact. And code enforcement at that point in time, to the point they gave up on this particular property. And it's been numerous things throughout, so,
Elmhurst?
yes,
Okay.
yeah, so, you know exactly who it is,
The
so.
front yard garden.
Yeah.
I'm saying, what,
So-
No,
you gotta beat
yeah.
on the bush.
Should fall under taking care of the weeds, foundation plantings, the grass.
Well,
Yeah, so,
It
so
should fall under
let's,
that.
yeah, so let's
I think
jump
it's a
to
big
this.
circle.
Let's talk about two things here, so I'm very familiar with the code, it's been utilized in multiple municipalities I've worked in before, and it was adapted for the purposes here in River Park. Now, what specifically with the naming of the plants, you said people think it shouldn't be cut down if it's a native plant?
That's
So
what I'm trying to understand.
I don't know what they were talking
So-
about.
So if I may, our code is defined very strictly that unless it's a shrub or tree, unless, right, everything else, not a shrub or tree, is considered a plant growth, right? Some type of plant growth. It doesn't matter if it's ivy, it doesn't matter if it's a dandelion, it doesn't matter what it is. It could be native, non-native. But anything that's a plant growth and not a noxious weed, so there's a definition list of noxious weeds.
That's a whole different thing.
Whole different thing. We're just gonna stick to legal, non-noxious, but not shrubs or trees. Those can only grow to a certain height, and they have to be mowed, period.
6 inches or
It's
something.
it, yes. So it doesn't matter
Your
what
front
it is.
yard.
All the whole yard. Now, if you've got a defined area for a garden,
That's probably not good.
well, it is, because if you, otherwise, you have to have separate definitions for meadows and stuff, and we've never discussed how I've worked through municipalities that have tried to do meadows, and it's a disaster. So it has to be done in a way that doesn't become a disaster, because when people use the meadow ordinance to justify just letting it grow.
Natural.
crazy. Right, yeah, not natural, but all the noxious weeds are mixed in there, and then you've got a hot mess trying to say, hey, you gotta cut that part down, get rid of those noxious weeds, or we're gonna cut it, right?
And there are a
Yeah.
couple houses that are justifying it that way.
No, but we have no meadow ordinance, so
Okay.
since we do not allow yard meadows, okay, whatever you wanna call it, suburban, urban yard meadows, everything that's not a tree or shrub within the yard has to be cut to 6 inches or less, that is just it in a nutshell. Now, if the village wants to go through and try to
Okay, wait.
weed out different definitions, we can.
Flowers.
Is there
Well,
So if you
a
have
garden
a
or a flower
bed,
bed?
That's
if you have a
excluded,
bed,
I
now we
think,
can-
that's where it gets into the whole
It should be
definition
cultivated.
If
of,
should be
is it plant growth or plant
Specifically,
vine?
plant growth defined, I'll read it to you, all grasses, annual plants and vegetation other than trees or shrubs. This term does not include cultivated flowers and gardens, okay, so those areas as designated are separate.
So you can have
Yes.
natives in your cultivated.
Yes.
Do we have a definition of those two things somewhere else in the
Well,
code?
they're, yeah, somewhere in here, there's,
Okay.
we'll find it, that's just, but it is called out, so if we need to add a definition, we can add a specific, and that's not hard. So, natural plants are native plants and accepted cultivars of wild plants are a recognized type of landscaping. These areas must be tended, cultivated in a manner consistent with natural plantings and confined to a definite area. So I can't say my whole yard is this. Doesn't work that way, right? You can have landscaping beds, you can have, and those things are fine, right? Now, even in landscaping beds, people let them get crazy, right? And like, they don't mow them. And so, but that's not allowed anymore. Once you get crazy noxious weeds and all this other stuff, if you don't mow it, we're gonna take somebody with a trimmer and go just chop them down to under 6 inches, because basically, it's not a landscaping bed anymore. It's just becoming a part of the yard at that stage. So, as long as you keep it,
You're saying we're gonna
Cultivate.
do that?
what's that?
You're saying we're gonna do that?
Oh, I've done it
Yeah.
before, and I've
I've done it
decided,
too.
if people do not care for a landscaping bed and it becomes part of the yard, and they're letting it grow to a foot, 2 feet high, then yeah, that's what happens. You have to cut it down, because they
They
are
get a
not,
square feet and,
yeah,
and
they're not cultivating it at that point.
we charge them for the labor. If they don't pay for it, there's a lien.
Well, so then I guess maybe I'm ahead of myself here, then, is that then the code, I mean, are you good with the code, I guess, the way our code's
You
written?
don't want
Yeah.
this.
When the description of, what is it, plant life?
Yeah, so it's called plant growth defined, and so.
Plant growth.
Yeah, so all grasses, annual plants and vegetation other than trees and shrubs. And then it calls out a couple items which include cultivated flowers and gardens, so those are separate,
Right.
right? So that way, we're not just saying you have to mow your garden down, right? That's allowed by the code. So,
So basically you have a space that's designated for the flowers, it
Yeah.
could be, I mean, you might like to say a mulch bed, but it might
Yeah.
not be mulch.
no, it could be whatever you want, but this is my flowers here within this
Right.
area, right? That's a definitely defined area
Right.
that doesn't have to be mowed.
So,
If somebody wants to grow weeds,
Well, that's
And
what I
go-
was gonna
that-
say.
But then they've gotta go
Better
put the
not-
bed around them, and then they've gotta actively cultivate those.
They have to be a non-knock.
And that's
Non-knock.
right, so even then.
Yeah.
So yeah, if somebody wants to go through the hassle of having a weed bed that they care for,
Yeah,
then they would be, you
Exactly.
know,
Which
skirting
are-
the law, but I'm guessing that they're probably not that active if they're weeds get out of control.
All right, never mind.
I would agree with that, so unless, yeah, something else needs to be adjusted, it's good code, we've used it in multiple areas and it works, so.
I do feel like that location is kind of an issue still. Is that right, or you're saying it's not?
I was just told about it, like,
An hour, yeah.
Less than 24?
So you haven't even.
there's been a report, a complaint that came in, I'll investigate it, and
And we will see it,
you will see it on a report.
we will see it somehow on a report somewhere.
And it's not gonna be an overnight thing, and probably have to.
No,
look
I
at
mean,
that
here's
one.
what I would
Well,
say,
I
this
don't
is
think they've
not,
been very cooperative in the past, and I don't think that's gonna
I
change.
don't, I mean,
Well-
I gave him a high caress complaint at the beginning of the year.
I don't think it ever really changed much.
No, and that was just for the overall yard though, I didn't nitpick on the.
But then it was a
beds.
veggie garden, I don't think it's a veggie garden now.
well,
Well,
I think there's a tomato plant
tomato
or
plant.
something in the middle.
There's one tomato.
Here's the,
tomato in there.
when we're
Well,
not
they-
on a recording, I will tell you guys a story. I will.
Once a meeting's over.
That's a German one.
Yeah, it's a fun story. If only I have pictures. I know I have pictures, I'll have to find them. Alright.
Alright, so,
That's all I
Okay, I
got.
do think that's probably it, so we'll adjourn at 8:37 p.m.
All right.
Yes.
Hey, I didn't get, I know this is Eddie Bell. I know you from the egg, you're the egg guy. And what was your name?
My name's Brady.
Brady?
Yeah.
Let's see, I don't think you got a long last name, so we'll just leave it at Brady.
Brady's fine.
This is them working outside. This is not a joke. Do you see this?
And as far as the
What they're wearing.
What is that?
That's what they're wearing.
I've been in.
The hats we're talking about?
Yeah.
Well, who is
That's them outside
That's
working.
amazing.
Well, and I'm happy to.
Them working in their yard.
Do they get hazmat suits on?
There we go, go ahead.
All right, we will go ahead and call the meeting to order at 7:06 PM. And, go ahead and do a roll call, and I'll start. Donna Kovecki, present.
Lisa Craddock, here. Tiffany Hughes here.
Tony Benedetti here. Eddie Bell, present.
Brady Oxinger present.
Eric Fisher present.
Okay, so really the only thing we have on, well, two things we have on our agenda tonight. I tried to stick with Tony's suggestion of just green space plan, but we do need to address the variance first. And I'm guessing everybody's had time to take a look at it.
Yes, I have some things to add for the variance.
Okay.
Okay, so first off, Jason went out and remeasured the actual distance from the building line. So it's a 2-foot difference. Okay, so they would need a variance to leave the fence where it's at, but it's 2 feet into the building line area, over the 14 foot. So it's actually 12 foot from the building line as it currently sits. So that's number one. Number two, I spoke with the owners today, and they are considering simply moving the fence back 2 feet. So right now, they want to table the action until they can determine with the fence company, because right now the fence company said they would move it back 2 feet. So right now, there's no cost to them as they understand it, but they want time to investigate that and proceed to move it back, since they feel it's the fence company's mistake in the first place. So that's where they're at. So they request at this time a table.
Okay.
That sounds easy enough.
And that's fine, I did wanna ask, and I know I asked by email, but I could have sworn that in the development text, we were not allowing privacy fences up against the ravine. Like, does anybody else remember that?
That is up against reserves, you're absolutely right.
Okay.
Yeah, against the reserve.
The fence doesn't go along the back.
This is not, yeah, this is not a fence along the reserve.
It goes to the chain link fence that is ours.
Yeah, that's our fence, so
that
this
borders
is,
the reserve.
so this, I'm happy to pass this out.
But we are allowing fences along the reserve.
Yeah,
There
there-
are fences along the
Yeah,
reserve.
there's not a, we can
Not
review
sure how
the
that
text
works.
this evening, I don't know all that.
Well, I mean, that's a really good question. because
Yeah.
This one is up against
I don't know that it backs up to a chain link.
There's at least some surface.
That's what the-
Is it to the black chain link, the tall one?
Yes.
Yes. And it's further from, I just drove by it.
Yeah, this is
No,
not
it
against.
backs up to the hill.
No.
I think it backs up to the hill.
No, this is up against our.
Your hill.
Our fence line.
Oh.
So yeah, the
hill in the
It seems like it.
Yeah, the blue squiggly is our fence, right?
Yes, correct.
And so they're just building.
This is
like,
up against the other,
making corners basically, and then it's.
correct. As we have allowed per the text, they can bring the fence up
Okay.
until it gets, you know, perpendicular to our fence. They're not allowed to cross within that easement, which is why he scratched out that part there, to let them know that, right? So this is perfectly legitimate the way they have it shown in the rear, per the code.
So my question is, why is the fence so much further back on the south side of the house?
That's where they chose to put it.
Okay, that's not according to the.
No, that's a matter of where they chose to put that on that side versus the other side.
Okay.
And again, you know, they're not happy, and I had a long discussion with the gentleman today, and he wasn't happy with his fence company. You know, they were at fault for not filing the permit and for putting the fence, so I think they've got to settle that up with them.
Yeah,
And that's why he asked for a table at this time.
okay.
But that's
So
a,
I just wanted to make sure that if they should choose to leave the fence where it is, that there weren't any other issues.
No, no,
Other than just that.
no, that's correct, it's just the 2 feet. I mean, you know, it's one of those things to where, you know, I think they want to legitimately see, I think the communication I received today is they want to legitimately move the fence, but I think their issue is that they want to make sure it's done for them, they don't want to pay for the fence, so they're settling a private matter with the fence company. Now, obviously, there's a timing with this, they can't wait until forever and a year to come back for a variance, so we will give them a legitimate amount of time to do this, let's just call it 30 days. And we'll reapproach them and say, you have to move it or take it down, or, you know, it has to be handled one way, or get a variance.
Are we definitely calling it 30 days?
We
Is there
can.
a definite number?
There's not a definite number, it is a little bit of discretionary in this case, but I say, you know, we wanna give them some legitimate amount of time to settle the issue with the fence company, right? So,
So I guess my other question relating to that would be, if they would have gotten a fence permit, they would have had 6 months to take action.
To build the fence.
Fences are
yes.
right now, but, I don't know if we need to take that into consideration when asking them for remedy. I mean, I would think that the fence company would wanna get it taken care of before.
Yes.
winter, But, if that's, I mean, if they're booked or something,
Yeah.
it doesn't happen until spring, is that something that
No, well, okay. So that's the reason we don't wanna let it go for too long for that. They're in the parcel owner is responsible at the end of the day, right? And they're in the wrong here. It's not let me apply for it and get permission. It got built, it's in the wrong. We want it to get handled. We understand there was an error made. Jason spoke to the fence company. They were apologetic to us about the problem. So I'm assuming with a little encouragement from our side, we can get this resolved in the next 30 days. Either they're coming back for a variance review, or they'll move the fence. They seem to, the community stated, they seem to want to move the fence if they can get this all settled out with their company. So that's where they're at.
so do we have Jason call the fence company and tell them they have 30 days?
Yeah, I would say that we would definitely follow up and say, hey, guys, this is what we've got, let's get this settled. You
Yeah,
know,
it would be best and easiest for our residents if
exactly.
we help put some pressure on the fence.
That's absolutely correct. I agree with that. So,
Okay, so, in that case, I will, make a motion to table variance request B-24 -04-2020, until further notice, I guess. Can I get a second?
Second.
Okay, all those in favor?
Okay.
Okay, opposed, abstentions? All right. Moving on to green space planning.
Well, I got I've got to the point where I've got all kinds of suggestions. You know, I don't know if anybody's got the maps with them, maybe not.
Oh, yeah, sorry, I can go get some in my car.
But my big thing has been looking for a sledding hill. And I'm thinking that the area, I think that's when she did it. Well, it's an area where we're talking about the people cutting their grass, you know.
Where the dirt pile is?
No, where the people are cutting their grass in the reserve. Like, what's that, Quail Court?
Above the lake?
No, it's right, like, there's a hill that goes back into, we'll wait till we get some maps. But it's right there at the corner of Quail and
Cotton quail?
Cotton Quail.
Is it out from where my
It's-
house is?
Yeah,
Okay.
exactly. On the other side of, like, right behind your house, there's a hill back there. You know, and it may take a little dirt and regrading. But
I like the idea of just going down,
there's a big hill.
no, I'm saying go down into the lake, that's a big hill.
I was thinking the lake could be interesting.
I mean, got some ice skates, that was the best hill. I'll go straight down.
But, I mean, that would be my first thing that I'd say, there's the sledding hill in that area. And that's where, when you start talking about wanting to name different parts of the reserve, I think that's a good idea in that, that's pretty big, reserve, and
No.
there's different, like, sections of it.
So,
then you guys got maps of it.
are you talking, Tony, are you talking about, so my house, then there's a reserve, and then the road, and then the reserve? Are you
Right.
talking this side?
Yeah.
Okay.
Like I said, that's back where the people are cutting their grass into the reserve.
So we'd have to bush,
Oh, okay, I know who you're talking about.
we'd have to bush
Yeah.
hog that.
Well,
Get
and
it
that's,
prepped.
that's why I've been want to talk about where we're gonna mow and where we're not gonna mow. Because,
That's a heavy topic right now.
well,
That's
yeah,
what?
and that's where, well, but see, well, to continue on with that, if that gets bush hogged, like he's saying, it needs to be cut down, that's one of the areas that I think we need to cut more than MI. And I would also say that this whole pathway from the dam, below the dam, back behind those houses, there's a lot more that we could mow. I'd like to get closer to the creek, so you can get to the creek without going through a bunch of brush.
Yeah, you could definitely make the creek at certain points accessible, right? Which would be nice for children. At the same time, you could find places where you don't mow so that you preserve some, some ecology, for the wildlife at the same time. And that's always the, I guess you need to find the most popular access points or easiest or safest points of access.
I
along
love
the
the
creek.
idea of mowing in that area, I walk that path all the time and I hate the bugs. Sorry.
Well,
I'm
and I also foresee, the other thing that's been brought up is, I'll call them workout stations, whatever you do those things. Start in those areas and start working your way around, a couple maybe in there. The one thing I have to admit is I haven't been back into like D and G. There was that pathway back there, I haven't even seen that area. But that's my vision, is a couple maybe along that path, a couple of those workout stations, which kind of goes over to where the areas where the sledding hill will hopefully be at. And then, and this is a big one, is, putting a path through beside your house, through A, B, and to connect the pool to the new development.
Well, council a while back discussed that and decided not to do it. It was something that
Council
MI,
decided that, I know it.
no, council decided it. They were there and decided it.
Well,
It was when, it was before the houses were built, MI wanted to know, do you want a path or don't you? So that they could tell the homeowners, there's going to be a path here, or there isn't. And the council at the time decided not to do it.
To the pool.
And I think,
I remember.
That was to the
plan.
pool.
The initial
I'm sorry?
To the pool.
For that.
Yeah, well, it would have gone along if you know the borings are they're the house closest to that, I think it's Reserve A.
A,
Um,
is, yeah.
It would have gone there and then through the wooded area, well, I guess I think the plan was to go through the wooded area. I think the idea was that council decided it was just gonna be a mess of maintenance if you tried to, you know, if you're gonna put a wood boardwalk through or whatever, if you're not, it's, you know, there's so much water that comes through it. They decided, at least
Well, that was
the people
what
that
they
I heard
designed.
talking about it said it was just gonna be too much maintenance.
Cause there is that big water thing right there.
It needs a bridge.
It's a big, I mean, a lot of times there's no water in it, but sometimes the water is, I mean, it's up in our yard, it's not contained to that one area.
Small stream comes through here. How would you suggesting that hill is correct?
Pretty sure.
Yeah, it's right here.
Yeah.
So there's a tree line here, so you would have to cut this, I mean, you would have to aim them in a way that's away from, you know what I'm saying?
I get that.
Okay. So just so everyone can see, this way here is trees, and then you can bush hog this stuff back here and aim them towards the pathway at the end of the day. And there's another waterway, obviously another side of the path you have to be wary of. You know, and you know how kids are on sleds.
Well, I still say send them down into the water.
Yeah.
Further.
Not
The other thing I'd say about the path through there is, was my point, was it's 1/10 of a mile from either way, from Far View to the pool, to Valley. Excuse me?
Lisa, I said, I knew you were gonna have a lot of objection to having an impact.
I'm telling you what was discussed
I
then.
understand.
And I do have well, I take that back. I think at the time we were talking about it, I thought it could be good. I know Steve didn't like it, but I'm just telling you what was discussed then. So you have an idea of how they came up with that
But, you know,
plan.
we could go on and on about all the things that the past councils decided to do and not do. That really doesn't weigh.
Well, where you start, everybody ends up.
Okay.
I don't know how
It's a lot of work.
I know it's correct plan I saw.
Last year, I don't even
Had a
anyone
path.
used it one day.
Yeah,
That was their initial path, and I understand that they decided that. would be-
I'll have to send you the grading plan.
But I don't think so.
well, that's your prerogative. I'm just telling you what a past group of people who made the decision before the building happened, what they decided. I'm not just telling you, I'm telling everybody here. I'm just telling you.
And I think that was before I started with the village, because they, I think, did that with some discussion. I don't recall that after I started in 2016.
I don't know.
I mean, I guess maybe we can start talking, did anybody see that your neighbors are asking to get,
We'll get to, let's get to that in a minute. I agree, it should be discussed, so.
Well, and I'd say if you look in here, I think it's probably not a bad idea. Of course, it's up to council, but what's the village gonna do with it? They're gonna have to go through somebody's yard to get to that property.
what are we talking about?
Well, yeah, are we jumping now?
I think I just jumped.
Okay,
I'll take it back.
so, yeah.
Okay, well, let me back up, because
Yes,
there's another crazy idea I got, is, back over here, there's a road that goes back, or used to go back to the,
Plant.
there's a sewer treatment plant back in the corner. So there's a little bit of a road right over here at the end of Maplewood that goes beside the people's house there.
Oh, finally, I figured out what you're talking about.
Well, here, and this is, I'm thinking about a composting place where people can take their compost and maybe even, recycle and turn that into kind of like a composting hole. And it's got a road that, and then there's the hill that hopefully will be, spreading that hill out, so it's kind of blocked from everybody around it. There's a tree line in between the neighbor's house.
The road, and you're talking about the road as it stands on our current ground, right? Not, because most of the,
Well, to say a road, I mean, it's a
it's
driveway.
a path, whatever it is
Yeah.
back there. Yeah, I got you.
There's actually a fence, there's an old fence still there.
Oh, really?
And gate,
Okay.
it's closed.
Huh.
That went back to when it was the sewer treatment plant.
And that's on our original ground, not the golf course in my
Right.
ground, right? Okay, okay, understood.
I think so, yeah.
Yeah, I think you're right.
And, the reason I say that is because that's where Chipper, our maintenance guy, he's been dumping brush back there already.
Oh, how about that?
And the composting thing that I've seen, I thought I've seen,
You have.
there's people that actually was saying, I was about to, it's very important to some people about composting.
It is.
And I think that's a great place because you can drive back up in there and, you know, dump stuff off.
So
Yeah.
is your plan for the residents to compost there, for the village? Who's working it? Who's turning
So
it?
the one issue, I like the idea, but into the logistics of composting is that if it's left up to the individuals, like if it's just, if I'm gonna do it and you're gonna do it and we're not gonna talk to each other about it, we're guaranteed to ruin it.
Yeah.
And you end up with like just disgusting sludge.
Yeah, I agree.
So somebody has to
Well,
manage.
that whole plan would, I mean, I envision someone that's careful, you know, that's important to them to kind of take on that thing. I mean,
Yeah.
We've actually
and right
had-
now, I'm just talking about, this is an area that we could do something with, like composting. Because-
I'm gonna just throw a comment in. I love composting, compost myself. We did it at the garden, the community garden, for a couple of years, and it was exactly what you're saying. Nobody,
You have to do it a
people
certain
threw
way.
everything in, there were things that you're not supposed to put in the
That finds
compost.
its way in there. Yeah.
People threw everything in, nobody wanted to work it, we ended up, I don't know how many years it was there, maybe 2, 3, and we ended up taking it down and taking the stuff to the, probably Kurtz Brothers or whatever, and there was a lovely little mouse house there. It was beautiful for that, but even the gardeners weren't, they weren't interested. They didn't wanna work it. And I'm not saying, I mean, you have a whole community, there might be people who want to, but I gotta tell you, you have a whole neighborhood of people who are taking compost over there, that's a lot of compost.
It is, it would be a large, it would
That's a
almost
lot.
be like, it would be a sanitary issue, we would have to manage it, you'd have to dedicate someone to manage it.
Well, yeah, I mean,
It
the
would be
good thing,
difficult.
there's green compost and brown compost.
Correct.
And green compost comes out of your kitchen and it doesn't do anything without good brown. Now, we have a ton of leaves here, that would be good brown compost that could probably offset it, but it just takes one dude throwing like something with herbicides in it, and now everybody's garden doesn't grow the next year.
Or meat.
Well,
and
the thing
critters.
is that, okay, so I'll
Critters
tell you
come.
who's a good expert at this, and I should bring him in, is my brother who's moved in. He composts on his own. You have to use nematodes, you have to be active in how you do it. You can almost break anything organic down if you handle it correctly, and he produces a lot of good, in fact, I need to put him in touch with him because he's got a lot of soil to put on the gardens. He's just, it's a hobby of his, he does it, right?
Well, and
He
this
knows what
is
he's
gonna be
doing.
something that's just for the village.
Yeah.
Because the reason I bring this up is that we're already dumping crap over there. I mean, that's why, and, you know, maybe if it's just where we take our brush and put it, or, you know, and it's only, because there's a gate there right now, we could have a lock on it. I'm just suggesting that that's a place where we're already dumping stuff, and we could maybe turn that little corner into a compost, and if it's even just for the village to put their leaves
Yeah.
and the stuff they cut down, and
With
know
anything-
that it's not gonna be, you know, have all those bad things thrown.
Yeah, I mean, if we have usable empty space in the village that's not pretty to look at, we should definitely find a purpose for it.
Right, and that's where I'm at, and talking about different areas that I'd like to,
All right.
that I think we could do certain.
I mean,
Yeah, I
I'm
mean,
not
I
sure
think it's a valid idea, we
Yeah,
just,
I think specifically, I think composting is going to be
getting the details.
a pretty heavy logistical lift. But if we can find some way, like you're saying, to utilize, you know, this place that we have that's just sitting there being useless, I'm all for it.
And I guess that's why, when I saw the road and the gate and the fact that there's an entrance site that already comes from that,
I have to argue with that uselessness too, because, I mean, we're a neighborhood who's very much into our trees and our nature, there's a lot of us. And that, I mean, you can say the humans aren't doing anything with it, but the animals could be. It's adding to our community in that respect. So,
Yeah.
just a thought.
Yeah, I
Habitat,
mean, having not seen it,
Habitat's
I'm assuming
Yeah.
it's, you know, it looks like the site of a former wastewater treatment plant, so that's.
Oh,
Well,
no,
what my
actually.
brain's looking at, but I haven't seen it.
No, and he's talking about up from the wastewater, but that actually looks good too. They've, you know, taken care of whatever and planted and where the wastewater treatment was.
Yeah.
Well, it's just a little isolated corner. You know, I don't know how many deer are back there when you talk about.
It might be a lot. Well, I think it'd be a great idea if we could make our own compost, you could use it on the gardens, you could offer it to the people. I mean, I think it'd be a great idea to, when we cut down trees, to have the mulch so that we could put potentially in the garden beds. But, you know, you have to have somebody, especially with compost.
Managing.
I mean, you could just leave it there, and eventually it's gonna turn into compost, but if you put the wrong stuff in it, it's not gonna be good.
No, and especially stuff becomes anaerobic in some ways, it becomes difficult, you know, people are just dumping grass, it's something we don't want, right?
Yeah.
I mean,
Could be stinky.
it requires some management at the end of the day. But that's a detail, right, so the idea is valid, you know, it's just what is chosen to do with it, so I wrote it on the map, compost, potential, alright.
I mean, I think it does, like I'm talking about the nature of the community, it definitely adds to that, because that's part of the, you know, keeping things natural.
And again, at this point, what I'm trying to do is just coming up with an overall idea of things to do in different areas. Which, you know, there was some talk on the Facebook page about a dog park.
I
Which,
have an email from a resident about that. They want it behind the pool. That was the ideal place that they wanted, and I've actually heard that from a couple people. And that's just something else, I mean, is that something someone's?
Liability, I mean, could we be sued for someone dog biting someone else?
Can be sued for about anything, but many communities have dog parks. And we can look to those examples from Gahanna to Westerville to New Albany around us have existing and productive. Metro Parks runs a dog park up there off Walnut. Many do dog parks, we can easily find the rule sets, find their research, you know, they're more than happy to share that information from a public entity standpoint, and you can base it on that, so.
And do I have my own concerns about it? I have 2 dogs, I have a cat, I have Bunny, I have, you know, everything, so I'm not one of these non-pet lovers. I can just hear the phone calls. Somebody's dog was leaving, somebody's dog was on a leash, somebody didn't clean up after their dog, somebody didn't do this, I feel like the complaints will come constantly, so.
Always a complaint.
You know, I see a great opportunity, a great land area to have something like that, but with something, just like we thought that the basketball court was the best thing since sliced bread, some of us did. Let's just say that, it's not for everybody, that's gonna be in somebody's backyard, you're gonna bring in numerous dogs barking at each other and barking at other dogs, are there gonna be set hours, because if you have.
that's why I don't think that's a good spot.
Where's the dog park supposed to be? Where's the suggestion?
Behind the pool.
So this area that we have marked originally is pickleball by the pool.
That's what
I think that's a better, you don't necessarily want a dog park next to your
Shelter
pool
house.
I see a dog.
No.
at all, I agree.
Out where it's a little bit more wild.
Yeah, exactly. You want it, where we find these dog parks, they're away from these other conflicting activities, right? Because it just doesn't work, if the dog's taking a poo, people are gonna smell that in the pool,
Correct.
right? That doesn't work so well, so.
My view is, most of the time I see dog parks are in condo complexes of apartments and different things. Most of us have a very large yard.
Yes.
Or a decently large yard. So to me, I would never use dog park. I mean, it's just one of those things that I couldn't see the benefit of it
At
here.
some point,
I
we
take my
had
dogs up
discussed
there,
this,
yeah.
and we decided, I thought not to do it.
Right.
Within the last couple of years.
I would never bring my dog to a dog park. I feel like that.
To me, it's something that you will ought to be off a walking path.
Yep, true.
And maybe even back over in the EG area, and again, I haven't been back there, so I'll make sure.
We do have, we do actually, in the G area, where they just seeded it, up north of Alta Vista Connector, there's a nice flat area, right? So this area, let me show you guys.
In the MI
Yeah.
area.
Yes, I'll just go around, so right here, where there's no house, it's a nice flat area right there. It's away from the other
I
houses.
thought somebody wanted that to be green. Is that
Right
where you
here.
wanted it
It's
to be
grass
green?
right now.
Is that across
In
from
this
the
area,
basketball
so
court?
in fact, on the opposite end corner.
Yeah.
It's actually this area right
Yeah.
here, right here, okay, yeah, right there. This
And
is-
again, if you have all these kids running around playing right there, and a dog goes after one of these kids because.
Well, that's not what usually happens around the dog park. So you fence in the dog park, first of all, and people are allowed to take off their leashes in the dog park. Dogs usually, when you take them to the dog park, and I've taken mine a few times in the Metro Park in my house, if you have it fenced in, the dogs are excited, they're inside the fenced area. You have to have a fenced area for them to run free, right?
I know that.
Yeah, and then you don't have those kind of issues. People, when they leave it, there's a sally port, they have to take the dog back on the leash as is required. And most people follow this fine, right? And so the dog's leash and out they go, back on their walk, take the dog home. So it's a nice usable flat area, which is why I bring it up. If you find anything like that nearby, you have some other areas deeper into the reserve area down where the, Reserve H, a little bit down into the valley area between the lakes, closer to the southern part, where you could also find an area that's sufficiently away from people, away from the normal walking path and everything like that, to where people can go and you can set it up that way. It's another
Does
option.
anybody want to entertain the dog park as far as this green space planning discussion?
I think there's a lot of residents that want to entertain it.
Yeah,
I think it's a train wreck for somebody like me that's gonna have to deal with problems. I never dreamt that I was gonna have a basketball court drama, and I'm telling you. Well, people don't like the leashes that other people are using, who's gonna maintain it, who's gonna clean up the dog food, because not every person's going to.
It's chipper.
So am I gonna send Chipper over there every single day to clean up dog poop? I see the writing on the wall.
Again, we're just coming up with an overall
Yeah, I agree.
idea, and just, this is the initial,
No details yet, just
yeah.
concepts.
Yeah, and so
So-
does it need to be on the initial plan? We're not gonna get everything done this year.
No.
So, it's something that residents are interested, there's a good amount of residents.
So it's a
that ask
popular
about
one.
it.
What I think, my vision is that we come up with this plan and then let people know and then wait for everybody to get pissed
Well,
off, like, this is where we want the dog park, maybe, this is where all the different things that I've been talking about.
Yeah, you have to get at least that far, because when people it's in my backyard, that's when
Yeah.
you get the,
Oh, I mean,
And that's why the dog park might be better
just like the,
south,
it's like the
in between.
past.
right.
Okay,
Now, are you calling
so
that
do
H
you
or I?
remember having this discussion?
for the,
What's that?
Do you remember having this discussion in planning and zoning?
About the dog park?
I'm just saying both the workout station and the dog park has been discussed before, and both were nixed. So I'm wondering,
I would also nix the exercise equipment, and my view on that is, once again, it's a maintenance nightmare.
Right.
Every one that I've ever seen is broken every time I've ever
so
seen one.
why are we revisiting? I guess what I'm wondering is why are we revisiting?
Okay, then we'll say then, all right, then we're not, all right, then take it off the plan then.
Yeah, to me, I just
I
think it's a
don't
maintenance
remember,
nightmare.
I don't remember anybody,
I don't either, quite frankly.
Oh,
It was before
I
my
made the
time.
presentation, I had information for it, and
For the dog park?
people- No, well, actually, I think
No,
I
let
did some
me
work
back
on
up.
that too,
I think
but
we
the
need
workout
to come
station.
up with a plan, and then
Yes,
These are the things,
wait
yeah.
for the
I agree.
feedback.
I agree, because I personally think if you put the dog park in the right place, as an example, it works, right? And it's hard to say what other things work or don't work until, as Tony said, you put them on a plan from a suggestion standpoint, and as you get into, a planning stage requires additional public meetings, additional comment time, and you see where people are at.
So how are you gonna figure out, just the basketball court, we had people interested, we had people not. So
Well, basketball court
how
was
are you gonna
unique.
figure out between the people who don't like it and the people do?
You're
How do
gonna-
you decide that?
I'm
They're
gonna
gonna
say it my way, hang on.
Okay.
I'm gonna say two things. Number one, I'm not mixing all exercise equipment. I think it's, if you have like a chin-up bar and different things that are solid pieces of wood, something like this, but I think those bicycle ones,
Yeah, I mean.
like those ones, the bicycles are broke every time I've ever seen one. Like I've never been able to use, like they're on the side and they literally just have like a, which I think is amazing. Like I'm an exercise person, I would totally
Right.
use it, except they're always broken. So that's my fear.
Well, and I think you got a good point, is that it doesn't have to be things with a lot of moving parts.
No, so
It
if
can
it's
be
a
very
basic,
simple
yes, if it were.
chin-up bar, like you said.
I don't know how many other ones we could find like that, but something along those lines. And here's what I'm gonna say about the complaints, and it's just like the dog park, it's just like the basketball court. You're never gonna please everybody, and I'm okay with that.
Yeah.
But you also, if it becomes, I'm okay, and here's what I would say, I would do the basketball court again, because now it's finally starting to get where,
You wanna pass this?
see, yeah, this is fine.
That's at Blacklick.
Yeah.
So something like this is totally.
It's probably
And they're
26,
very-
24 by
They almost
36.
blend into the, they're made out of wood, they blend into the surroundings. Yeah. Uh-huh.
There are more, if you wanna see other views.
See, yeah, this one's good.
And I think they had, I don't know, push up, sit up.
Yeah, and that's what you need, is something along those lines. So I'm just saying, none of the like moving part bicycles and.
Sorry, Donna.
Up there. You have that, she can't see it there.
Well, how can I show her?
I'm gonna get send her the picture.
I'll text it to you.
Text it to her.
So, I mean, to go back to that, you're not gonna please everybody, you're gonna do different things in different sections, and if they don't like it, they're gonna walk past it.
Yeah.
And you're just gonna leave it, you're gonna leave it at that.
But the way you work the plan is that you come up as a commission, you put things on a plan, so we can finalize a map, put locations on it, compost, sledding hill, dog park.
We've done that so many times.
No, but listen, the reason, this is all conceptual until you take the plan, you recommend it up to council, you have to have a public hearing, right? You have to give people a chance. You gotta put it out on your website. And because it's your finalized plan, your recommendations, and then you give people a comment period, right? Right? But listen, if you knock it off to Facebook, people will comment, will they not?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. So there's ways to get the public involved.
So we're putting everything on now before we do anything.
If you want to get feedback from the public, you have to do it in a couple different ways. What is your goal? What's your objective?
And how much are we, because we've done this before.
Uh-huh.
We've done this
We've
probably
done
2 or
discussion.
3 times before.
This is part of the
So,
original discussion.
I'm ready to move, but how much information do we need before we move on?
You don't need a lot. You can say, here's our plan, right? Because again, you're not getting into, if you want to put a lot of literature with any particular one, or if you want to get some, if you want to get into the weeds on conceptually, how would you look? I would say to start, you just conceptually put it on a visual map like this,
Okay.
mark it, put it out to the public to get some comment back, right? And then if you find council, the public like certain things, you know what your priorities are, right? You know what your priorities are to work on, both from a council and commission standpoint, and then you can get into the details. The devil's in the details of this. How will this look? What kind of fencing will I handle? Where are my rules for this, right? Because honestly, you don't want to spin your wheels and then be shot down later, right?
Yeah.
You want to see what's amphitheater's another one we throw up there. So, there's a number of things I think you guys have already worked through. You're correct that this commission has discussed. You have some new members now to help the discussion and think about it. And you'll get into the details, but it's not time quite yet. I think personally, if you need to recommend something up to council, you need to get some public feedback. See where the public's at, because some things may be shut down. They love everything,
No, I mean, I think I think you're gonna get a good sense of a dog park if you literally put, again, you've only got several hundred people on there, but I think if you put it on the Facebook page and say, this is something that we're tossing back and forth, and be blunt, we know that there's gonna be complaints with the dog park, and here's what I see envisioning, and here's the positives of it, what are your thoughts? What if this were in your backyard? You could literally see what people's ideas are.
Well, and that's why I say we put the dog park where it's not anybody's backyard.
Exactly. I say you put it at the bottom of H, where you've got some flat area right in front of where the old sewer place was, right?
Yeah.
There's a good spot down there. It's off the pathway,
Right.
right? And it's not in anyone's view shed of their yards. It's down inside the valley there. So,
Are you talking about Reserve D?
it's been called, H is the original name. It may be called D now. I put it on a different map with it.
I think you got it confused.
It's
So
by
if
the
we
old
put a
sewage.
dog park, are we
Say
going to
again?
put
Sorry.
lighting around the
So
dog park, or
I
is
was
it just
looking
gonna
at
be
one of the maps that you
dog
presented.
fences?
Yeah. Yes.
Or just have a little dust filled up?
Yes. What did I label it? I don't have it in front of me.
And the way we get things done around here, it could be years before any of this comes to fruition.
Yes.
No, there would be
But I
no
think it's
laws.
important to have a general overall.
Yeah, then someone's gotta probably lock it at night, every night. and
So
unlock it, and
they don't, it's interesting, we can look into how they're managed, right? Again, there's plenty of good examples from the metro parks to Gahanna out there that have active dog parks, and Gahanna has multiple locations,
Westerville.
right?
I
Westerville.
talked to
And we
Westerville.
can see how their rule sets work and what they do to maintenance them. That stuff's all detail stuff, right?
We don't need to get bogged down in.
No.
details.
You do not. So I was,
So the exercise thing, like what you picked, like something like that, I think would be awesome. Dog park,
yep,
flip a coin.
There was talk, I think, at some point about pickleball or
yeah, we've got that on the map over by the pool
And again-
On
originally.
the pool.
Yeah.
Maybe I should, Tony, you left this part out. So we are in the process of trying to determine if we are going to hire out maintenance for a lot of this kind of stuff, or if we're gonna bring in our own maintenance. So the reason that a lot of this stuff is important and cannot go on for 6 months how much green space are we gonna have to mow? What are we planning on doing in a lot of these different green space areas? So we're trying to do 12 things at the same time. If we're gonna turn behind the pool into a pickleball, how much maintenance are we gonna have? And it's the same thing with the dog park. If we end up taking over a whole area and putting a dog park, obviously, you know, what are we trying to do to maintain it?
Well, that you can say about anything that we're.
Right. So, exactly, so it's a matter of trying to determine what we want to do and how much additional maintenance or how much maintenance we're knocking
So-
off by doing this.
You're talking
So I
about green
Yeah, so,
landscaping.
so if I may, here, this commission's job is to present a recommendation to council, right? And I also don't think it's this commission's job to tell council how it's gonna handle its maintenance.
No, we're not, but we
Council will
wanna know-
figure that out.
Right, but we wanna know what does planning and zoning wanna send up?
Yeah,
So,
exactly.
if there is no dog park, there is no exercise, there is no, if we're just gonna leave it all green space, that's
Yeah, but,
useful information for council.
but I don't think that's what the people are moving in that direction,
But we
right?
need a
At this
time
point, when
plan.
you're talking about what we're gonna mow and what we're not gonna mow, none of these plans have really much to do with that, because none of it's gonna get done.
In the short term.
Right.
Well, in the next year.
For now, we'll be mowing.
And what we got, that's the
Yeah,
other
we're
thing, I
gonna,
sent
but that's the
email.
other part, it's that if nobody thinks that any of this is gonna get done in the next year or two, that's good information to know.
Well, and that's, again, that's gonna be council's
I hope it
determination,
does.
quite frankly, right?
Me
They,
too.
they may not like any of this plan, and might not move forward with it, and they're like, we're leaving it all green, right? So at the end of the day, all the commission can do is make recommendations up the chain as to what they wanna see, and the first start of this is to finalize what you'd like to put onto the plan and what reserve areas, and then send it up to council. And then we can proceed with getting public comment and council's comment at the end of the day.
You put the pavilions and picnic tables on the list?
I do have benches, I do, yeah, and we can you have to choose kind of where your pavilions and picnic tables are gonna
I
go.
thought the shelter would be nice at the picnic, at the pool. I know that messes with the pickleball court, but I thought that would be a nice spot.
You have a good lot of space over at the,
You do, I think it would be, I
Or
think
maybe
it
you
would
could
be
do
fine
both,
around
I don't
the
know.
wall. Yeah, I think it would be fine over right there.
yeah.
If we wanna do a shelter house.
I wonder if having something like pickleball or, you know, tennis closer to basketball would at first make everybody really mad, but eventually help to regulate the basketball court.
I think you're gonna have more activity, right? Inevitably, you're gonna have more activity there.
You would have a larger age range of people sharing that space, I think.
Which can create its own conflicts at the end of the day.
Right,
That's
or
not
or it
right.
would also help keep everybody in check.
Sometimes. We don't always say we need to put different demographic groups together, because inevitably we know they're gonna cause conflict from an activity standpoint, right? That's something to consider when you're planning these things out, you know, it may be best to put the pickleball away from the, you know, and we can look at best practices, I'm just.
Right, I mean, yeah, if we're talking, you know, if we're trying to figure out what to put next to basketball, and if it's, you know, a place for some 40 and older year old folks to go get activity, or a place for me to take my 2-year-old. Right now, I don't think I'm, depending on time of day, wanna take my 2-year-old. But 40-year-old me going in with my other 40-year-old buddy, I'm more willing to help the basketball court stay respectful and in check.
It's one way to think about it.
I'm not following, are you saying because you're there,
Yes,
older people are playing, they're.
You're not gonna have as many 14-year-olds using the 4-letter words if you've got a bunch of adults sitting right there. I'm not saying it's not gonna happen.
And or yelling at them for doing it.
Yes.
Well, I mean, for me, my objection to having the pickleball is just more activity. I mean,
The parking would be a nightmare.
yeah, it just, there's already enough stuff going on there.
But we've got that space, we've gotta put something next to.
well, it can be sheltered, there's many discussion points about what you can put in the northern space, right? Because you already have a smaller play area that's older, you could do another more modern player, you can do a more shelter, you can.
Right, but
you can
whatever
have
you put there,
options.
you're going to bring people, so the
Yes.
parking issue is the parking issue is the parking issue.
Yeah, don't disagree.
But probably more people if they're going to the playground with their kids, don't you think they're walking, like they're in the
That's what we like
community
to see.
walking there
Yeah.
than driving?
Well, here
I don't know.
Well, and
but-
I'm gonna throw it.
Not without a cut through from my old section.
What's that?
Not without a cut through from Jordan and Park Lane.
Yeah, we are.
We're working on that. I think like the natural playground we talked about would be nice if we're gonna, cause I know Tiffany was talking about wanting that area green, but
Well,
it could be
pick a
some-
spot.
well, that's what we're saying on this, where Eric was just talking. It would be east of where the playground is now.
Correct, that's where we have
And
marked
I
natural
thought it'd be
playground.
really cute, you've got all those trees, you could have a little path that goes through to the natural playground. So it's not like they even have to go out close to the road if they just wanted to go over there.
Correct.
We're talking two playground, leave the old one and build, is that?
Yeah.
Yeah, like the,
Well, there, now you're talking, because that's what I was gonna, I'm thinking we,
It's not gonna
like,
be like on the other
extend,
side.
make the playground bigger.
so
That's
the
kind of
playground's
what-
here and there's a tree line and then.
Yeah, you'd have to clear the tree a
Yeah,
little bit
on
if
the
you want a
same
connection,
side.
but yeah,
Alder Vista,
you definitely have a lot of ground to work with right there.
but on the east side of the tree, on the east side of the playground.
I mean, that's why we got those lots in the first place, was for playgrounds.
I mean,
Yeah.
you could potentially do the natural playground close to the playground that's there, I think.
Just make it larger, just to
Yeah.
where you go around.
Yeah, I'm not sure what kind of space is
Nice
there,
little-
but,
Nice tiny little covered bridge would be an awesome.
I mean,
thing for kids to go
it'd be
from
so
one side to
cute,
the other.
wouldn't it?
No, you're,
Yeah.
Go right through the brush.
yeah, the Metro Park up there at Walnut, and again, has something very similar to this,
Mm-hmm.
which is kind of a climbing wall mound with a little cross bridge, they go up and down, so all day long.
Like on the bridge, what is
Yeah.
that?
Yep, yep.
Yeah.
And you hit the ball that way and then you.
New Albany has a nice
There
natural
you go.
playground.
Yeah.
Very nice. And-
Okay, so we need,
I don't know if it'd
we're
be,
gonna, so we use the playground to the other side. We use like tetherball, like do a couple little things like that around there.
Yeah,
but not in the natural area.
Not in the natural,
We
but
do that on
somewhere
the
over in
other
that
side.
area. Even if we did it over towards, like if you did like a pavilion
Mhm.
over on the other side and just did something like that, just far enough away from the basketball court to where they can still do other stuff over in there. I still think we just need one of those in the pool, just so you know.
Need what?
I love.
Tetherball in the pool.
Tetherball's
Oh,
gotta be about the least expensive.
I could, yeah.
They
Right,
have,
put one by the
Oh, don't
pool, put
we?
one at the playground, and
they
put
have
one at
two
the exercise
people,
area.
and there's a line for them to be able
It's,
to.
you know, once a
So
year, there'll
why
be a
don't-
raffle,
there's
people
so
will
much
steal the
land there,
balls,
why don't
but
we-
other than that, you've got no additional.
I'm with it. I think maybe.
Do we
from a
plan that
planning
too?
Standpoint, we just say.
How about you go put
clean
like-
the
Yeah.
playground.
Hey, Eric,
yes,
I have a project for us to do this week.
yes.
Anyway,
you're putting tetherball there.
Tetherball?
you guys have the
Well,
rest of
tonight,
it.
you know, when we were talking about.
Good,
pavilions,
no, I don't think I do.
My thing about pavilions is I'd like to see one, you know, a little bit more of a, you know, away from houses, maybe more, you know, trees and stuff around.
I
Why
don't
not
think you can have enough of those, I mean, and I
Well,
think maybe we can have
A
enough, but
couple of them.
two or,
maybe.
yeah, I mean, I feel
Before
like,
go back, because there's a path, this area back where we were talking about the dog park. Somewhere over in there, you know, maybe having a shelter, because you got a road with a path, you know, people could park over there maybe, and if they had to go back into the.
you could do different ones, you could do more of like a wooden one, you could do more of like a modern one, I mean, you could do a couple
Maybe
different
just
versions.
even picnic tables or
If,
something.
if y'all go to Blacklick, they have one that's, and I've got pictures. They have one that's, I'm gonna say steel. Donna, does that sound right?
The picture you sent out?
Oh, did I? Yeah,
Yeah.
like it's two beams and like a sail. It's not,
I know, sure.
I'm sure it wouldn't keep the water off of you. But they also have probably 3 or 4 different sizes of shelters. So you could have one with 2 picnic tables in it. And they're little like, you know, they've got 3 walls, a couple windows and 2 of them, you know, just a little more put together than just a, you know, regular. But they have, all I'm saying is they've got some different options, and you could say, oh, we could do a little one here, we could do a medium, we could do a big one. We were just up at Westerville at that park by the barn, and they've got a beautiful shelter house. I mean,
Oh,
it's
yeah, they do,
ridiculous.
yeah, that's really nice, they rent that out,
It
that's
would
really
cost a
cool.
lot, but,
Yeah, that would be expensive,
Do you
but
guys
it's
know how
nice.
many people use the picnic table over there?
I see a good amount using it.
back in here. Oh, how about a picnic table or a shelter by the amphitheater?
And that's the thing, the
I
amphitheater,
see a fire ring down.
yeah, the amphitheater needs to be
Yeah.
handled.
I think that would be good.
I mean, I think you could start with a picnic table and then
I
just,
still have hopes for movies in the park at night at the amphitheater. I mean, it's a natural, seating. It's a nice little, you could have a bonfire and make s'mores and.
Can we just hear that one for that?
Who's?
I'm just kidding. I mean, we could, we can't do any events inside, so we had to move them outside, therefore we had to fix it. Hey, I can justify a lot.
Did I send pictures of the shelter houses?
I got
Okay,
it.
so you got all of that.
The steel one with the sign
I think
shade.
that is so.
But the smaller ones too?
I just
No.
saw the one.
So you also, I mean, there's a lot of stuff around the new subdivision, right? Obviously, we're getting ground, there's things to be planned, but we obviously need to do something a little deeper into the classic subdivision, right? And there's not as many opportunities over there. You definitely want to spread out some of what you do. There are, however, a few opportunities. And in particular, who knows Mr. Preston? Preston, is that his name?
Oh, the right of way in between.
Well, that's interesting, because it's not just, it is right of way, so I'll just point this out, this is off Minerva Lake Road. This is our right of way, he's got a driveway into this vacant parcel as well. Okay, across, right here. Now, the interesting thing here,
Yeah, I know. where
you know what I'm talking about right here? Okay. The interesting thing here is obviously, we grant him an access through our right of way, all right? And he uses it in a private manner. There might be a way, and some approach, this is a nice parcel right here, that is right now, he owns.
He owns, yeah.
He owns it, but there's no use of it. That's a good location for a small, what we call pocket park. In the middle, it's off Minerva Lake Road, accessible. There might be a way, in some discussion with him, to utilize it that way, and even in a way that he gains in the process, right? Not even necessarily have to lose title to it.
I mean, the Boy Scouts built some kind of.
Is it off that right away? Because I know we have several of these unutilized right away. So if you're already off that, then yes. So we have several of these areas that just happens to be one opportunity that's right off on the corner of the main road, easily visible, easily accessible. There's another one deeper in, but it's very wooded, right? More to the south. This one's right there. You could put up some type of pocket park for children, something, and, utilize it in some way. So
Okay, so I'm gonna.
I'm not sure what his plans are.
that's exactly my point.
I don't know.
But it would serve, the point is that it would serve our purpose to get something deeper over here versus the focus right now, everybody's talking about right here, but again, there's a lot of, people have to go a long way to get to here, right, by foot. One idea with time parks is that you have to sprinkle them amongst the population, right, so that people have more access.
Toyed around with, or thought about trying to clean up that area right at Cleveland Avenue where the ravine's at.
Yes,
And,
and,
and that, you go down into that section there.
and we do have access in the rear with right of way as well too. I have it marked up here, right by the main entrance there, you're right, but it's also privately owned, so we have to
Well,
work.
I think one side,
It is, one
I
second.
know Robert Moore's got it, like,
So-
from Second Hill Road.
So there is a vacant, yeah, exactly. Rose owns it, Rose Wilson Hill. Now, in that particular case, right now, it is not really a buildable lot, I'll be quite frank. So what purpose does it serve? Not really any for the owner. However, if she donates it, she can take a tax deduction as well too. There may be a way to donate it at some point in time to the village. Or she can get an annualization on it where she can maintain title again and simply lease it to us for, and take that difference, right, every year. So, into perpetuity, however it gets handled, right? So there's multiple ways to do it, and it's a good idea, because we can probably make better use of it. You can't build a house on it, so it's not a buildable lot.
It's just totally overgrown, and I think there's potential.
It is. And we definitively have a good access point to the rear where we have an alley right of way to the rear of it. So we can do that.
Okay, does anybody have any other areas that they're really interested in doing something else?
I had a few things.
Go for it.
Are you done, Tony?
Am I done?
Yeah.
Pickleball.
I think I was thinking kind of
Drink up.
small and quick with my stuff
Okay.
this time. Benches
Yeah.
at a couple places. I have 2 benches still, if y'all wanna use them, that the resident gave us that we can stick out in a couple places. One of them I thought should be the lake on Black Sycamore. There's already one that's sort of on the northern side looking east, but there's down in that area that Eric's talking about putting the dog park, it's just this beautiful, natural, you can look down in the valley, and I think one of the benches would be nice there. I don't think I came up with a place for the other one, but we have another one too. Let me see. Oh, there's a water fixture that needs to be fixed. I thought naming ponds in the reserves would be very nice, it'd be easier. Bench locations, trash can, dog back stations. Picnic table by the amphitheater, bench overlooking the valley, said that, shrubs. The other thing was in the area by the basketball court, just putting up some screening. We had talked about something, should we do shrubs, should we just do, there's room for, in between the two trees that are sort of there, you can put another tree. Do we wanna do a line of shrubs that sort of screens the basketball court from the residents that are on Maplewood, would that be? Or not, or just leave it? Do we wanna
I
put
think
a
it's a
tree
great
in?
idea, I would love to get them a little bit of screening, I would love for that to, me personally, where do we sign? I think that's
Okay.
something that needs to be done, whether it's early spring, whether we're too late this year.
No,
But that to me is
it's a
something
great
that,
time to plant.
It is a great time to plant.
so,
Do we try to dig shrubs? Well, maybe we can't do that yet. The shrubs we aren't gonna maintain, or do we just buy new ones?
Say, what was
And
that?
I'm just saying, if we dig them up,
Shrubs or
I don't know if
buy new?
they'll live. I don't know how that'll be.
getting some to shelter off, like the people that live right there,
The
the
orange.
basketball
Still,
court.
I was at a friend's house that has bamboo, and I'm still, I like it now.
That's a nightmare.
If you
Well,
don't
that's
control
not
it.
what he, it depends on the strain you have.
I agree.
That's what, the guy's had it there for 4 or 5 years now. He says the great thing about it is you mow it down and then it shoots up even higher, where
So,
so I'm not,
Yeah.
so this is where this always is still for me, even after this point in time. So if we decide we wanna put something in there, do we need to get something to council if we just wanna do something as basic as that? Like,
No.
this is my vision, and everybody knows that I do things different than everybody else. I would like to pick that particular area, so between the playground, all the way over, that section, just because that's where everything's happening right now, and get moving on, what do we want to do? So like, this brainstorming, I feel like, Tony, don't take this wrong, because you brought back up mostly what we've talked about before. But I agree, I feel like we've talked about this for 3 times, we're
And-
still in the same boat,
and
these are the
this is-
things we wanna move forward on, or
This
we
is
don't.
so easy.
So if there's
It's
minor
so
stuff,
easy.
Mayor, if there's
Yeah.
minor stuff like shrubbing, and each of these are separate items, right? I wanna buy a bench, I wanna buy a trash can, I wanna do this. Not a big deal, except you just have to make sure in each particular case, you've got your money already appropriated in a line item and you can PO it under 3,000. You don't have to go back to council for any of those items.
Right, but I guess this is where we're getting difficult, if we order 3 benches and 2 picnic tables, I'm over $3,000.
Yeah, but you're over $3,000 for that order. Each one is technically a separate item for a separate thing. If you've got little project areas, you just have to make sure the money's already appropriated primarily, and you write a PO for each particular order. As long as your individual orders technically are under $3,000, you're fine.
So if I could get council to agree to on the appropriations when we get there we're getting ready to vote on Monday night. I believe, it might be next Monday. If I can get them to appropriate X, I don't know what number we wanna use yet.
Yeah.
To move forward on getting some benches, some trash cans, some picnic tables,
Plantings.
some plantings, some different things like that. If we could use the parkland fund for whatever we decide, if you guys wanna move forward doing a couple of these little things.
Yes.
Go ahead.
Can we-
One thought would be, on the plantings, I think absolutely that's a no-brainer. You know, if we're planting things that are going to come back next year, then we've done it right. Trash cans, probably I would agree to, but on benches and picnic tables, would there be any thought of approaching the community association and the community? If someone wants to buy us a bench, we could spend the money on a placard and
The
say that
memorial
this is their
bench,
bench.
we got a bunch of them around already.
We've gotten some already,
So why not get more and get free benches?
Now, does that have to be done through the association, or can the
No, I'm wondering if the
village?
association would be interested in buying a bench.
I would not count on them buying a bench right
Or,
now.
I mean,
You may just take it
if they would
Financially-
be willing to help us get the word out that we're
Yeah.
seeking donations to buy benches, and if your family would like to buy a bench,
You can set up from an accounting standpoint, you can set up a fund to collect money from the village standpoint, the village can then divvy that out. You know, but again, that's kind of that's a little bit of a reverse appropriation, it's not, it's doable, let's put it that way. It just has to be set up technically to do that. We can do that, the appropriation, the association can help us do that.
yeah, which, I mean,
Right.
the association or not, I'm
Yeah.
saying if, if the village could say, your family's been here, for 55 years, would you like to buy a bench? And someone says, how much is it? $250? Yeah, let's buy a bench, and then our outlay is $9 for a gold placard with their name engraved in it instead of $250 for a bench.
Except the bench is probably a lot more than 200.
Usually about 1,000.
Okay.
Or we get several
For-
people buy
for-
that, you got a lot of
Yeah.
people placards.
A couple of them.
I mean, or a street, or a cul-de-sac, or,
I think it's a great idea.
and if you put the word out there for a month and you get one bench, then we've saved $1,000.
Yeah.
If you get no benches, then we wasted a month. But
So-
always look for free stuff.
So maybe we have an idea of where we want
Or you
them
can
to
recoup it
go,
later if you
and
want.
then see if people want to purchase or,
Yeah, you don't necessarily have to wait, the mayor. What I would suggest in this case is, you wanna do something, right? You get the money appropriated from council, you can set up your collection fund and get the money, and then as people pour money in, you can,
Right.
you
And
can,
again,
you
I
can
feel like
black
we
them.
have plenty of things, I mean, I
Yeah.
feel like, and you guys may shoot me for this, but I feel like if we asked them for like $10,000 in to go out for, maybe we could do one, I'm gonna call it a pavilion or something like that, maybe we could get moving on.
Yeah.
In that one, and if we don't use it, the money's just gonna be there, it's not like I'm gonna write a check for, if we can get it appropriated for.
what about the plant? Can it come from Marios? Does it still need to be appropriated? Do we have to go that route?
It again depends on the funds, if you,
If the Mary Yost funds.
that's one. So as long as you have written, and I don't know what the details are with that fund, because you have to follow what the wishes are, and again, I don't know how, I'm just talking about a standard fund, right? So if there's a standard fund for, let's just call it Parks and Rec Fund, right? And it's already an appropriated line item for the mayor's use, the mayor can write out a PO and approve it for under a certain amount without council's approval,
Okay.
right? And then she can go spend the money, but it already had to be an appropriated line item for that purpose, right? So it could be for, I don't know, Parks and Rec.
The money's just sitting in a fund.
Yeah.
But, does it have to go into a different fund?
No, only if the council needs to, like during the budget cycle, the council already approves a budget with appropriated line items, right? And so those line items are meant for specific purposes. The administrator, the mayor, can write a PO on ones that are specific to, because she has to administer the funds. If it's under the limit, under the policy limit, she can take it out of those funds for the appropriate items.
Yeah, that's why I don't think that we've appropriated any money out.
You've appropriated a lot of money, there's a lot of line items sitting around, and there's a lot of money for different purposes that are in those line
I'm
items.
just talking about Mario's fund.
No, you're right, I don't know how that gets transferred, so that's a little bit, that one's kind of a special fund. That's a special
How
fund.
we pull money
So
out.
Yeah,
here's
yeah,
what
yeah,
I'm
I
gonna
agree.
say. I'm gonna see if everybody's okay with this, and Donna, I know you're in there too, so hopefully you're listening. I'm gonna see if we can get Kim and Leah to do, on our new appropriation, $1,000 from the Mary Yost. That'll give us $1,000 towards actual plants that would,
Enough?
well, I mean, just to get us started.
We'll make it 2,500?
2,500? Okay, 2,500 there, and again, if we don't use it, it's not gonna go anywhere, I'm not
Correct.
just gonna write it, you guys know that, and I will work with you on that. And then we could do something like 10,000 from the Parkland Fund, which is, again, we're focusing mostly on, obviously, all of it on that.
Yep.
For trash cans, like he said, and not to be done, maybe somebody wants to donate a trash can and put a thing on there. So, but here's
Or a
the other
dog,
part to
or a
this.
dog thing.
Well, here's the thing with that I'm gonna say. We could probably use 15 trash cans. Nobody's gonna go buy 15. I'm talking about, we'll get 2 or 3 now, 2 or 3 later.
Yep.
Same thing with the
Exactly.
picnic table, same thing.
Yeah, there's always a place. for
So I
it.
think if we would just get $10,000 appropriated, because I think a lot of you guys like the way, I would like to get some of this stuff done this year. If we could just focus on one area, if we could look into what we would need to do a couple, of the exercise things. I mean, again, the chin-up bar, you know, most of those are pieces of wood. So, you know, we could look into what would it entail, because grass cutting season's gonna be over, the ground's not gonna be frozen. Maybe this is something that we could get Brian to help us with over the next few weeks, not the next few weeks, but at the end of October, beginning of November. If we could get the money appropriated, it's something that we could look into having done this year.
So I guess my question is, if you take care of purchasing things, then who, I mean, are we, I guess I was thinking about plants, but now you could say that the workout stations are, who's doing the work? Are we paying for that? Is that included
That
in
could
the
be paid for, yeah, it depends.
appropriations? Are we counting on,
I believe it can, so, I mean, if it's Brian, that's, if we're paying him just as our maintenance
Yeah.
person, it's just gonna be our maintenance person. I know Mary Yost, we can't pay for the planting, so if you're not doing it, or Minorva Flora's not doing it, and we hire somebody, we would have to use that out of parkland fund.
okay, so, yeah, and I don't mind, but I'm probably not gonna be planting 30 bushes, 30 shrubs.
I
Well,
would look at it.
and
And you don't
also,
want me
like-
to do it all die.
Picnic tables, do we have to buy pre-made picnic tables from a company or?
Not necessarily, you can buy whatever tables you wanna buy.
Or, I
We
mean,
build
could we buy wood and I will build a picnic table?
So the one that we just had donated, it was actually built, and it is amazing, and it's great.
Right, I mean, I built a picnic table for our backyard. It took me 2 days.
They're only $100 at Home Depot. I mean,
Yeah.
they're like not completely put together, but they're
Mostly.
mostly.
Right, and that's, yeah, I mean, that's about what I can do it for, so if
And
we're, you know.
here's the difference with that, and trust me, I battle this going back and forth. You can get a $100 one, it's gonna last you a year or two, you're gonna pitch it, and you're gonna go get a new one, or donate it to a resident, and then go buy a new one, because you'll start getting splinters, you'll start getting those types of things that are not gonna last, depending on exactly where you put it. You go get one of the $1,000 ones, it's gonna last for probably closer to 10 years, and you're done. Do you wanna spend basically, do you wanna spend $100 and replace it every couple years, or do you wanna, and I don't have a preference, maybe we do a variety.
I prefer doing the cheaper ones.
Yeah, I mean, and you can get more throughout.
Kind of get a feel, like if they're gonna just tear them up.
Will people use
You
them?
know, and
Right.
I think it's about the look too.
Uh-huh.
I don't know if, I don't know what a $1,000 picnic table looks like, but
Right,
I think a
well,
nice pine picnic table is nice.
well, and this one that they did, the way that they did it, the way that they sealed it, I mean, I expect that one to last quite a while. They did a very good job on it. It's a little larger than your basic picnic table that you're gonna get. So again, you have some of those, and having the larger picnic table for some people, I mean, let's just be real, I mean,
Yeah.
that was a nice one.
I think Tony's point of just, I mean, maybe you see how people treat them, maybe you see, maybe that's not the place it should be, so maybe it's not a big deal if you buy one and it lasts a couple of years. I will say, we had one at the garden that was, I could not believe how, it did not last very long, a couple of years, and it was painted, so. And it was just a pine Home Depot, so we may not get a lot of years out of it.
No, I agree. I think that's what you're gonna, but it does give you, you can definitely buy 5 of them and put them throughout and see what gets used and what doesn't. You know, again, I think it would be great to have some sort of shelter over by the basketball court. I know some people aren't gonna like it, but I still think it would be great to have some sort of little, small shelter with 1 or 2 picnic tables. Same thing over at the pool with the pickleball. But again, I think if we just focus over there, do a couple little things, tetherball and something else over in that area, just getting things moving. I think that if we could get council to appropriate $2,500 from the Mary Yost fund and $10,000 in the Parkland fund, we will explain, I will explain to them that we're interested in getting trash cans, you know, maybe doing a tetherball or 2, and maybe starting to do some of the chin-up bars, and that's the only thing I can think of, but whatever those, you know, a couple different things like that over in that area, and I'll show them the pictures of what we're interested in starting.
Yeah, I think if we're talking about doing things outside of plantings, doing things that are not permanent, then we should move quickly.
So, how do you feel like if you were making the picnic table, are you getting better wood maybe than what you'd be purchasing, or, I mean, does it?
I'm thinking now about what the mayor said and looking, and I think I agree that you buy the 6-foot recycled plastic table for $700, and recycled plastic is not going to melt, the legs are not going to, you know, to rot. The legs are made of metal, they're not going anywhere.
that table is there.
Okay, is that what we're talking about?
There's a variety, I'm saying,
Yeah,
you
we're
could spend
talking-
100 or
Okay.
700. I mean, it's all in what everybody decides they wanna do, but I think, again, I agree with getting something inexpensive before you spend 700 to see if people use it.
Right.
I can tell you, this one has been used, and it's wonderful.
Yeah.
I mean, I couldn't imagine if we spent $1,000 on 3 picnic tables throughout and no one does anything and they flip it over and, you know,
Yeah.
whatever. I'd be really disappointed if we spent really good money and it wasn't
But
being
you can
used.
move the picnic table.
Yeah, the thing
If you
is,
get a
we
good picnic table that will last, you can put it somewhere and say, hey, why is no one using this? And
That's
pick it up
And so,
move
yeah,
it
and
somewhere
so
else.
maybe try both options and get something nice for the basketball courts where you know it will get
Sturdy.
used
And abused.
and abused. And maybe it's not the most aesthetically pleasing, but it's the most durable.
And functional.
And then buy a couple of, or make a couple of, you know, nice rustic looking picnic tables and throw them around, you know, in different places. And if it looks like nobody's using it, we pick it up and move it somewhere else and
Like
see
down
where.
at the amphitheater would be a great one, just to
Yeah.
throw one right now.
Yeah, and just, yeah, and we're all active enough that you see if folks are using them and see if, you know, people are posting pictures near them and stuff.
But
So, yeah,
then
maybe
each
do-
one that we do, we're gonna have to make sure we have a trash can there.
Right.
Yeah, each table gets a trash can, you know, we buy one.
So.
Yeah, and I think, yeah, spending the money in trash cans is a no-brainer. It's the Disney model.
Yeah, true.
Never heard it that way, but yeah,
Just
that's
I mean,
right.
if
Do those have to
Disney
be-
policy is you're never 10 steps away from a trash can.
And that is
Because
the
if it's
truth.
easier to throw it in the trash can, you don't throw it on the ground, and that's part of the reason Disney looks so nice.
They're pretty trash cans.
They do have pretty trash cans, I wonder how much those are.
So do those have to be, are you, making them permanent in the ground, concrete, or are you just setting them on the ground?
Honestly, we'll talk about it at the next meeting, let's see if council approves it first, and then we'll see exactly, I mean, I'm not just gonna go out and start throwing them out as soon as they approve it. We'll sit down and we'll say, okay, this is what we have, not we, but these are some of the things I know we wanna move forward with. And again, we're not talking about permanent structures, we're talking about some of the basics to get started. Maybe tetherball's a little more permanent with some concrete, but other than that, we'll discuss it. Do you guys want to do that? If we put it by the amphitheater, do you guys just wanna put it through there in the winter? Maybe you guys decide after we get all of this that you don't wanna put a picnic table up until spring. I don't know, I mean,
That's where your sledding hill should be, at the amphitheater.
Well, there's a
Those
lot of
rocks.
That would be,
The rocks on the one side,
I
it
guess
is
that's
true, you have access, nice access with the pathway, right, on the hillside. It is a little more rugged on the rock side of it, but at the same time, that should be covered by the snow and the ice, right? It should make a difference once you have a certain level of inch coverage.
On this side,
That'd be
where-
quite-
Well, I'm talking about on, let me make sure I can pull. So I'm talking about on the dam side where you have open access to it, and you can go down the hill, right, in that bowl area, down from the dam, embankment side.
Are you talking about right at Minerva Lake Road?
You have that area around there, right, so you can choose where you wanna go.
Well, there's a lot, I mean, that's all part of the drainage of the dam, the lake right there, and that's always wet, there's big rocks.
And yeah, right now it's way too rocky.
Yeah,
Yeah, I mean, if there was anywhere around, like on the other side of the dam, like over by the spillway, there is kind of a hill there, but then at the bottom of that, you've got the little creek or.
That's where-
that's the thing, you've got a waterway.
Just don't wanna go that way.
I've been looking, I'm thinking that spot right over where I mentioned is the best one.
Might be. And we'll have to see how people react to that, because once you start mowing, I'd have to say you wouldn't have to mow it regularly. I'd say if you're gonna prep that for a hillside sledding, you have to map that out a little bit, and then you bush hog it once a year before the sledding time.
Well, that's an area that I would talk about mowing more than once a year right there.
Okay.
I know Lisa wants to let as much go back to the natural as possible, but that's an area
yes, I do.
that I think that.
It is pretty
ought to
natural.
get mowed. Even if we don't do the, sledding.
It's got some steep areas over there.
Why would you think it should be mowed more often?
Because of
Just
the
for
people.
looks?
Because it goes right back over here to the reserve. I see that whole area from along that pathway, going up and all of that being up, in my vision.
So what, and I guess the question is, what would,
The whole thing?
would there
So
be?
it's all grass?
We would have to,
Well, not to the tree, where there's a tree line.
there is a tree line, but why,
Yeah.
why would we, I guess the question getting back to her is, what would be the purpose? Do you foresee it to be utilized by people, like, in some form? Why would it need to be mowed? Just from a look standpoint or from a usage standpoint?
From a look standpoint.
Okay,
I think that, I mean, I can't envision those people's houses having, you know, butting up to an area that is just completely overgrown.
I don't know, I think it looks
I'm
quite
guessing
good
they probably
behind them.
bought for that reason.
Yeah,
And
that,
paid premium money for
they
it.
did, this is
But they're mowing
true.
it.
Well, so
Well,
I think,
some of them.
I think the next
Yeah.
step, I think the next step on that particular discussion is that I would agree that we have to either get some film or we have to get some walkthrough, we have to get some visualization of some of these areas along the path as you look up, right?
Well, and that's what I hope everybody on council and this
Yeah.
group will start to do.
We'll have to do,
is to go through there and
I think we'll have to take some, I'll take some photos, just, we'll have to prepare
I
something.
think you need to
You can see
go
I
and
spend a lot of
experience it.
time.
I agree with
I
you
don't think
completely.
photos are gonna.
Yeah, no,
Yeah, but we have to have
I
some way to
would
talk about it.
Absolutely
Not everyone's
love
gonna
a field trip
experience it.
opportunity.
Yeah, and I agree with that too.
Well, could we do that the first 30 minutes of, or 45 minutes of the next, assuming no rain?
Yeah,
Could everybody just, you know, because I didn't know if we were going to, so just, you know, actually when we went to the because you had mentioned it to for tonight even. I thought that that's what you meant, you know, if we could.
I did.
yeah, we
So
may even wanna
not-
start a little earlier, given how light it
Yeah,
is
we
too.
can do
We
that.
may wanna start at 6:30, just so we can get out there and, you know, we've cut the meeting a little short, obviously, for that purpose. But on the next meeting will be on the 7th. And I will say, you know, obviously it's getting dimmer and dimmer, but I would say, weather permitting, we should definitively meet out there and start a walk at 6:30. I think that's a good idea, weather permitting.
I'm totally fine with that.
Yeah, that would be very helpful.
Okay. So we'll just post that we're starting a meeting at 6:30 and we'll, that's fine.
It's probably okay.
Yeah.
And could we have,
Yeah.
for that, could we have, or ahead of time, a list of all of the
What we've
projects?
discussed, yeah.
That we've
So
just
let's-
discussed, so we can
that's a
walk
good
by
idea.
and say, that would be good here, that would be good
Yeah.
here.
Yep, we can do that.
And I think from there, we kind of make a hierarchy and see what.
Yeah, you can put them all there, quite frankly, but yeah, whatever you wanna do.
So something kind of on topic, a little bit off, I went onto the grant website and just did a quick search and I happened to find one bike grant, it's a grant for
Really?
doing stuff with something bike related for $10,000. And I mean, the deadline is in 1 month to write the grant, but it's for bike paths, lanes, trails, bridges,
Can you-
mountain bike facilities.
Can you just send me the link?
I sent it out to, you should have it already.
Okay, let me look.
Mountain bike facilities, bike
Sweet,
park.
yeah, I see it, thanks. Thanks.
Yeah.
Doesn't it even have like 4 bike racks?
It does, that's the next one. Bike
Yeah,
rack,
that's
bike
good.
parking, bike repair station, and bike storage.
Mayor, let's talk about that. I think we can probably write something in-house pretty quick.
Yeah,
I'll read
so
it.
I thought that was pretty cool, but I
Yeah,
don't know if
that's
we
good.
have time to do this, I mean, it's due
We,
in a month.
yeah, we have time.
Okay,
I mean, staff has, well, I'll talk to the mayor. We'll work something out real quick.
okay.
Those aren't that hard. Those small ones are not that difficult. They're
Yeah.
usually a couple pages of stuff.
Dawn is usually good at it too, Dawn.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
laugh.
I have to look into that.
Yeah,
Yeah, she sent it to all, he sent it to all of us, we'll talk, I mean, to me, I think it
Yeah,
would
I
be,
didn't see that, I haven't looked at it.
yeah, I think it would be amazing.
I think so too, I think it'd be perfect, you know, and I would.
it's a good
do
find, Eddie.
Bike repair station, that would be really cool thing to put
Interesting.
somewhere too.
So
Over
what is,
by-
how, what is that? What do you think that
What
is?
exactly?
So,
Like
the
a-
bike repair, you could basically just take, I mean, they can be as simple as
Just an air pump or something?
you sink a log into the ground, and then on cables, you attach a handful of the most common sized wrenches or sockets, and you put an air pump next to it that's chained to it. So now, if a chain is coming, you put a chain breaker and a chain tool. If something's coming loose, I have this stuff that's permanently attached with, you know, with steel cable.
Yeah.
walk away.
But I can get my bike there,
Here's,
it's this high out of the ground and it takes up that much space, but if I know where it is, I can limp my bike there, I can fix whatever I need to do and get on my way.
So is the thinking that you'd, if your bike's broken at home, you take it there and fix it,
Take
it.
What
or?
happens on the trail?
It's-
If it's
Uh,
broken on the
okay.
trail, you know,
okay.
I'm
So
closer
you
to my
better hope
car,
you're
so I
there.
go to my car, I'm closer to the repair station. Or,
Okay.
you know, something feels a little bit off, I'll just ride my bike there, I'll tighten what needs to be done.
Yeah, and I just found a commercial one, Deluxe Public Works stand, $915. Looks like you attach it to the wood,
Nice.
attach it to something.
Yeah, but they, I mean, they make them where you would actually have an air compressor and things like that. There's, you know, the Cadillac version or the one that's on a railroad tie.
So you could, so you might have more than one,
Yeah.
and you could potentially have, well, you're probably only gonna have one workout station, but you might have one at the workout, or if you did a couple different workout
So you
stations.
did over one by the basketball court, one over by the pool, one over by the, you know, where a lot of kids are bringing their bikes.
Or next to the bike racks.
Mhm.
Yeah, you put one next to the bike rack.
Okay.
So yeah, you could put a couple of those, so yes, I think the bike, yeah, I think that's amazing. That would be
But
amazing.
yeah, bike rack and a repair station.
I think so. We need a couple bike racks, maybe even one
Yeah.
like basketball or,
Yeah.
or something like that.
Yeah.
But it's
Could they fix our bike path, could that be called a bike
Yes.
path right
Yes,
here?
yes, and that's a great idea. That's why you and I need to discuss, because I think we're gonna get a quote from MI on that. We can utilize that quote, and we can probably, and I think we could probably at least cover that section,
I
you know?
thought they were supposed to be doing that.
No,
So I remember distinctly hearing that.
People
This
remembered many
happens a lot.
things
Yeah, I know,
distinctly.
it's happened a lot with these people. Seriously, like they're gonna do this, no, they're not gonna do this.
They did a lot of stuff that nobody asked them to do, right?
I-
And they spent a lot of extra
I
money.
completely agree, they've been great
All right?
in many ways.
So,
maybe it's
but
the-
everybody keeps remembering extra things. Now, they are starting to say no.
Maybe it's the people, yeah, maybe it's the people that are telling us, I don't know.
Yes, so
So yes, we'll be here Friday,
Yes.
That
so
would
we'll
be
talk about it
great.
Friday.
I'll send you, let me read through that and then I'll send you my suggestions. You and I, cause I won't be here Friday, but you and I can
Yeah,
get stuff done on Monday. It won't take that long, I don't think. Let me read it and we'll go over it.
Yeah, I think it would be awesome.
Yeah,
Okay, so Donna, I'm gonna take over your meeting for 7 seconds, because we're now gonna go backwards again. And I just wanna kinda get Eric's 2 cents for, the request that we've gotten from the resident, and just, I'm gonna just give you, feel free to comment on this, and Eric.
yeah,
So right when I first took office, somebody came in, her neighbor had come in and said that there had been discussion in the past, and I don't wanna put words in anybody's mouth, this is my recollection of this. That there had been discussion in the past of the village, basically giving the property that is currently owned by village to both Lisa and Susan, so we wouldn't have to maintain it. And for the record, they have been maintaining their half of the property, the other people have been maintaining the other half of the property. This past week, we had a little bit of a situation where
show me where this is.
and I
Look it
stopped
up
it,
real fast.
only for the fact that we haven't
This
made a
is them.
decision as to what we're gonna do with
Wait
it,
a minute,
and
this
we
is
can't have
them.
people
Yeah.
altering the green space.
Yeah,
Because
this
if we
is
make it more
reserve.
difficult, and we do end up
We call that
maintaining
Reserve
it,
A.
But,
then we're gonna have an issue maintaining it.
reserve.
So right now,
That's Reserve
we're
A.
fortunate that they are both
She's talking
maintaining it.
about splitting this,
So,
and some of it coming
We
here
have
and
the
some of it
resident
coming
now
here,
saying,
but
this
they're
was told to
talking
us in the
about
past,
this.
that
Yeah, that's
if
not,
you guys
that's
were
not,
going
that's
to
not ours yet
basically,
either.
Title this into their name and get it out of Mineral Parks, and it was gonna be theirs.
This is our right of way
So
here.
that's as much as I can, so now, they asked about it, and I said, look, give me something in writing. This is where I'm at, it's been brought to my attention.
So is this
I don't
your,
have
where's your
authorization to
house
give village land to
at?
anybody
What are you
clearly.
caring for?
Nor would
So
anybody in the past, which is
actually
right
probably
of
why
way.
it never
I
happened,
mean,
it
we
was
clean
probably,
up
again, a
the
great
tree lines,
discussion,
not
all
like
that
we
something.
do, you know,
My
not
guess
cutting
is the
stuff down and
conversation
everything.
probably went
But
something like,
Steve mows
you know,
all of
oh, that sounds like a
Gotcha.
great idea, let's
And-
look into it.
So it
And
ki-
then
and
just
it
kinda
kinda
rolled
comes
further.
with
I don't know if it
this,
ever went any
Yeah.
further,
what he
I have
works
not
on.
gotten our attorney involved, I sent it to you guys.
So,
That's where we're at.
so my recommendation from a staff standpoint, and will always remain this way, especially on these kind of pieces, is there's no value to the village to cede land or to vacate. In this case, this is older platted right of way, is what I'm looking at on the auditor's site right now,
Are you
okay?
talking this or this?
Yeah, so it's in between, I'll show it to you.
So I'm just gonna say, Tiffany's talking about center of the tree line over. I think she's just talking about that triangle
I don't know.
that's further back, that's not, doesn't reach Minerva.
I don't know.
Doesn't it seem like it from her description?
In my opinion, she's talking about land that used to be the golf course.
Yeah,
And now it's one, it's Reserve A.
It's, I would say.
Yeah. It might be Reserve A. So, there was discussion, there has been ongoing discussion about each of us taking part of that common area.
This area here, and this is a right of way, this is platted right of way from the old days, sorry, this is not going okay? And there's a reserve A, which is gonna get seeded, so that's reserve B. And I would say, look, this is useful right now because you have two reserves that are coming into our possession between here and here. This is useful land to eventually plan your green space area. It should not be vacated back to the landowners. Usually when we vacate land, we've got, and we do have some of these cases here in the village.
I see that.
Yeah, you have cases where you have right-of-way, weird right-of-way, like alleyways that are not used anymore, and you split those between homeowners, right? Because there's really no use for you to have them. We're not driving on them, we're never gonna pave them, and maybe in those cases that's okay, but even then, I would say you have to be very careful because future planning opportunities come up and the village can never fully foresee how it uses its ground or what it'll need it for. There could be a utility need that alley may future serve, and you've given it away, now you've gotta take it back and it's gonna cost you far more money down the road. This is a big piece of ground here between two reserve areas you're gonna get conveyed here shortly. And now you've got a nice big piece of green space to add to your collection of ground. And I would never tell you to, Columbus does do this. Yeah. Columbus never does this on a freebie, by the way. So where you know, some villages and municipalities do it, they give the right of way back. But in Columbus's case, as an example, you gotta buy it on a certain, you can get it vacated when the city has no value, no need for it, but you're gonna pay for it, right? So there's different models to how it's applied. I would just tell you, you should not cede it back until you fully understand how you're gonna handle it in the future, after you get your conveyed property, and how your maintenance stuff's gonna work, right? And you're not quite there yet. You haven't gotten your conveyed property, you're just going through your green space planning now, and you don't have your maintenance department set up yet. So I would say you've got three factors at play, and there's no need to, your ground's still gonna be there, and if at some point in the future you do wanna vacate it and give it to landowners, the council can do that, but.
Is it just grass and weeds? Is it wooded?
So the triangle that's nearest them, I'm saying triangle, I think that it's mowed. The golf course mowed it, I think they're mowing it. The,
Go ahead.
that would be, well, I guess the whole thing's reserve A.
There's some.
Where the tree
trees.
line is, really just trees, shrub.
Yeah.
We've gone in and taken the poison ivy out, that kind of stuff, but it's, and then closer to the street, that is mowed as well. But I think what she's asking for is the mowed part on their side of the trees.
Yeah, so it read to me that it's the part that the golf course used to take care of.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking.
But
So
that's our ground now. And I would say since it sits between B and reserve A, and you see how this is all nice and connected now, and it's right of way, right? So it's just right of way we don't use, but it's future, if you could connect a pathway, right? I mean, that's the thing, there's sidewalk here, you could easily connect a pathway up here, when eventually there may be a pathway here, I don't know. I mean, there's things that the village can't necessarily foresee or do, and you should never give things back, right? And in this case, I would say this is definitely a negative at the moment.
I don't think anybody.
Well, and I think that's really all I'm asking planning and zoning, so they can at least have an answer, because this is something that, different information than really they've been given in the past. This is something that they were expecting, or maybe not expecting, but hoping,
Yeah.
maybe
Everyone
hoping
hopes.
that it was gonna have. So I think for me, at this point, if council doesn't wanna recommend it up to, or if planning and zoning doesn't wanna recommend it up to council, that's fine. I think it's just something that if Donna wants to chime in really fast and we can just,
Can I-
You just reported.
that's what I'm gonna report. So, I
Can I
guess I
just-
would like to hear Donna's
Can I just
too.
say something before? So when I spoke earlier, I said it made sense to me to give it to them because it's basically landlocked. But
It's not landlocked.
I know, now that I'm looking at it, like you're saying.
Yeah.
I mean, now you can't get to it unless you go through the trees or somebody's yard.
Right.
So that to me makes sense that they would
You
just
can
take
get to it right from the street. It's
No,
this is all our
no, you're
street.
gonna have to, because if you go from the street, you're gonna have to go through all these, I mean, you
But
have
it's
to go
still,
through the trees.
you have access from the street, like, it's
Yes.
right of way, so it's
Okay,
completely
but
accessible.
I'm just trying to explain what I was saying.
Yeah.
When I'm looking at it, I'm saying if you wanna get to this green area without going through shrubs and trees and all that mess, you have to go through their yard or you have to go through their yard.
Yeah, but,
But when you look at that as a whole.
That's right.
I'm just saying I see what you're saying.
okay,
If you tear down all the trees, you could get right there.
or make a path. Or do, again, the village
Or
doesn't
make a
necessarily
path, yeah.
foresee how we're gonna use it, again, green space planning,
Yeah.
right? could be a lot of
And it
things.
may never be touched, but again, it's just the opportunity 25 years from
Yeah.
now, there's gonna be different council, different mayors, different everything, and maybe they'll knock it down and
Well, I
put
think,
it up.
my opinion is if we don't put a path there, then maybe we can give it to them. That's what I would say.
Well, but when are we gonna put a path there?
I hope soon.
Okay, in 5 years, 1 year,
Yeah,
Wow.
but if it, you know, if it happens in 6 years, and we say we're not gonna do it in the next 5.
I guess.
I guess I'm just saying, it doesn't make sense to
I
me.
guess my thinking, when I was thinking about it, was if it was, so now they're mowing it, it's been mowed, they're mowing it. If they just said, we're not mowing this thing anymore, then it'd be up to the village. If the village wanted to mow it, you could not, you would have to go across somebody's property to get a mower in
Could we just
there.
let it grow and?
You
Yeah,
could
you
let it
can.
grow, yeah.
You can. And in
Yeah,
fact,
that'd be great too.
that is perfectly legitimate way to manage it, where you'll have to tell the homeowners,
Yeah.
we'll mow our property, want it to grow, we're gonna plant certain things, or we're gonna let it go natural. That's our ground, and that's the end of it.
Yeah.
So, very simple. So,
Well, we'll just
Okay,
get
sorry,
started.
Donna.
Green-based plan.
exactly.
Yeah, do we have any inclination of what their plans are if we say no?
I would assume just continually, and my understanding was just to continue to do what they're doing.
Yeah,
Well, they're taking care of it.
Yeah, and that's my.
I
yeah.
don't know that they're necessarily planting any. I think they're really just mowing and maintaining, taking care of the trees.
Right.
That's kind of what she
She did
said.
talk about putting an addition on their house, but I don't know that that would affect, but maybe it would.
So she told me an addition, and then she was talking about a tiny house. I said you should talk to planning and zoning. Yeah, I think the addition was gonna be kind of small. And maybe it was dependent on if they got that property or not.
Yeah, the thing is though, to get that, to put the addition, that's in the front face of their house, right? So it's an odd little way to do an addition. They have room behind them, even though
Yeah.
it's an odd angle. Yeah, no, I wouldn't allow any land to leave the village's control at this time. I mean, that's just my 2 cents on that.
Donna, do you have anything different to say to that? Do you agree at this point in time to not entertain it?
Yeah, I think it doesn't make a lot of sense at this point. I mean, the map that I'm looking at, it looks like it would be possible to path there from the Northern Lake Road all the way back through Reserve B if you wanted to, so. I don't know, I mean, I don't know that that was anything that we had intended to do, but I don't think that, vacating the land at this point would make much sense.
So if we don't, does it stop here, or does council still
Here's the
discuss
thing.
it?
If it was the council, I think it was just saying that planning and zoning wasn't in favor.
So- If I may, this is kind of a strange thing, the process here, because typically, if somebody wants to make an application, they do it directly through a process. I don't know, I don't know that you actually need to go through P and Z. Did you bring it, was it?
I just brought it because it was an
Okay.
email and I figured we were
Understood.
here and we could talk about
No,
it.
it's a perfectly legitimate reason to discuss it.
No.
No, I think if there's a request, council makes the final determination. They need to make an application to council formally through some format to say, I want this piece,
This
can you
is
vacate?
their
Is that how
way of
you're
doing
doing
it, just so you know.
Okay, okay.
I mean, I'm
But
just
they
telling
did
you.
it to you.
They sent it to me.
Okay, so, yeah, I mean, if that's how you wanna run it, cause I don't think we don't have a formal policy, I would say, yeah, just
Right.
vote it up or down as far as a recommendation, and,
We'll do it one day.
yeah, you can do it, and then they can talk about it on Monday.
And then, we can just bring up the fact that planning and zoning really wasn't in favor of,
Right.
Okay.
That'll be my report.
that'll be your report.
Yeah.
Cool.
So do we
All right.
talk about first of all, did she bring that up and you said you should send something official?
I told her to send something official
Okay.
when it was brought up.
Okay, so do we talk about the maintenance of that?
Well, and I think it goes hand in hand with it.
Or is that a personal between,
No,
I'm gonna
I-
say for us, anyway.
So a quick, and I started telling them, I don't think Eric had heard, so, on Friday, we have green space area that in the event somebody decides they want to alter it, which may not be, it's our space, planting additional plants in this particular area, I put a no to it.
Okay.
We're not gonna alter a green space area that is currently owned by the village. Obviously, I can't control that unless it's brought to my attention. It's kinda like cutting down
Yeah.
there's no difference. Until
Yeah.
a resident told me that it was being done, I didn't know it was being done. So what do we wanna allow people to do, what do we not wanna allow people to do? You know, as of right now, we know that that green space is being monitored, is being taken care of by Steve, and to be fair, it looks great, and I prefer that particular, I mean, I don't wanna have to take care of all of these particular green spaces that are currently being taken care of, but that being said, that's my opinion. You know, they're also doing the same thing, they're cutting the green, you know, they're cutting some of that green space and they're maintaining it.
Correct.
So,
It's
how do we
one,
move forward?
it's one thing to have residents just kind of willy-nilly, even though it's a no policy, if something happens, they're not supposed to be trespassing and cutting the policy. It's another thing entirely to have a policy that allows residents to come onto village property and maintain it. And I would recommend two things in this case, because it's not a usual course of action for any municipality, right? Because there are liability concerns. You know, if somebody is mowing your ground and you willfully are allowing it, right, and they slip and hurt themselves on their ground doing it, there's some issues there, right? There's some definitive liabilities, and you can be, you know, monetarily responsible for something like that. The general policy has been no for many municipalities for this purpose. So what I will simply tell you is you need to make 2 phone calls. You need to talk to your legal counsel about how that is crafted, because I suspect what has to be done, if you're going to allow a resident to mow it, they have to sign a waiver, right? They have to indemnify the village from any negligent action they take, injury they take in the process of maintaining that ground, and understand the risks involved, right? And the second thing is you're gonna have to talk to your insurance agent. You know, they have to know that a policy like that exists, that you're letting residents, because it may very well affect your bottom line of what you're paying.
Or it may have already, we may have already done this at some point.
I don't know that you have, that's very interesting. It's not a usual thing, so this will.
How long has it been being done?
I think there's a wink here that goes
Probably
on. That's what I think.
17,
Yeah.
I mean, we've been here
Yeah.
But there's nothing in the code.
19 years, probably 18 years.
No, this is something that's pure policy, it's just not done for the purposes I spoke of, right? So people can hurt themselves and suddenly you as the administration have allowed this, but there are risks involved with that, and if you didn't have them indemnify the village, which.
Right, so could you put that in code?
It's not code, it's more of a policy agreement, right?
Right, but could you put it in code so that the mayor, any acting mayor, has the ability to grant contingent upon the grantee?
I suppose you can.
Signing
That's a
away, you know,
very,
giving the village
it would be a
immunity.
very, it would be a very, that's why we have to talk to Luke, it's a very unique code. And I don't necessarily know it needs to be in code, it may just be something that council and the mayor sign off on, and as a policy, apply, right?
Couldn't we just make it like a permit? We have a zoning fee, so if someone wants to have a garage sale, it's a $0, what's on here says $0, I don't know.
Yes.
Or they have to apply, they don't have to
The
pay.
answer is yes, there could be that would be part and parcel with, you get a permit to care for a particular piece of ground. I suspect that we have to determine what that is, so this would get into, you know, making a map, you know, everybody's agreeable to what that is, right? Insurance is covered, the attorney's good with it, they sign something that indemnifies the village, and then out you go, and you're gonna follow whatever has been dictated and agreed to.
And the village
There's a lot of
is
areas
saying
that
how
this-
it's maintained.
Potentially gonna be,
I know.
and it, you know, with all the
This,
reserves.
in my
Yeah.
observation here, I believe this could become, although it seems like a nifty idea, and maybe it's something the village chooses to pursue, I think you need to be cautious with it, because I think it's gonna get hairy in certain areas. Maybe you can simplify it, right? So there's a reason why this is not normally done, right?
Well, I think-
I think it gets ugly, is what I think.
And I think that there's probably areas, like she's alluding to, we can't even get to.
No, I understand that.
So, and I think that there's also areas that we're
Understand.
fully aware of that used to be ours, that they've also built like sheds on.
Yeah,
So,
yes,
you know,
that's a
again,
different issue, but
people have
yes.
taken over some of the property that, I mean, I know in all fairness, this is, you know, we wanted to sign waivers and do all of this, and I'm not saying that it shouldn't have been done 15, 20
Yeah.
years ago, but I think there's some areas that,
You have to develop a policy that will protect the village in the process, if you start doing this on a larger scale. Because right now, unfortunately, we're aware of what's going on, it's on the public record being discussed. If something happens, I fear, not that they'll do this, but the neighbor, somebody, then sues the village for, you know, and we don't have any indemnification, there are many concerns, and I think legal counsel and insurance will share that with you.
So I think what's interesting about this conversation, I'm not sure if this is gonna make sense. Years ago, we had a yard full of trees fall in our yard, village trees. The mayor at the time had the tree people come clean it up because they were village trees, but I guess we found out later, I think the council said she shouldn't have done it. Because they fell in our yard, it was our responsibility. At some point, we were talking about what was our responsibility if we had people in our yard and the trees, village trees, fell on those people, who was
If
So-
the village
responsible.
knew that the trees were dead and there was a risk that they would fall, then it's the village's responsibility.
So it's
Potentially.
not, it doesn't work that way
Potentially.
apparently.
That's
So
that was
there-
passed in
there
Ohio
are-
law 2 years ago.
there are acts
That's
of,
Ohio law.
2-3 years ago.
there are negligence and acts of God,
Because
right?
there was a time
So,
when,
yeah.
you know,
Yeah, no, I was at the state house, I'm remembering this happen, a tree fell on somebody's kid in northeast Ohio and they passed the bill.
So was it,
People did
is
the
it
last
just
couple years
about,
and they knew.
just about personal injury or,
So-
cause what we
I think
were
it's
told
everything.
was
Well,
by our insurance company, who basically took over, said,
Yeah.
you can't make the village, you can't make a government entity pay for,
The only way you could is if you came and you told the mayor, you could prove that the
Oh, we
mayor
did.
knew ahead of time
We
that
did.
the trees were dying, then in that
We-
case.
we had an
But at the
arborist
time-
come
at the
in,
time-
told them what needed to be done, it wasn't done. Now, this was more than 2 or 3 years ago, so
Yeah.
maybe that's changed.
yeah.
So what you're saying now is if they fell, it would be the village's responsibility, whether it's village property or personal
If
property.
they knew about it
No.
ahead of time.
They have to know.
You have to make notice, so I understand what
Is
you're
it
saying.
up to the,
What-
who's it up to find out if the trees are
So
damaged?
that's exactly a very
It's
good
up to
question.
the
So here's
village.
the thing, here's what typically happens in act of God issues where no one knows what happens. Trees, this happens all the time.
Right.
Trees from a village piece of public ground fall and they bust somebody's car, they fall and they bust somebody's house. I have been there in different municipalities where this has happened. Villages and cities typically, as a matter of course, will pay your deductible. That is a courtesy thing they do. They do not have to do that, but typically the good faith policy to your residents, you pay that $500, $1,000 deductible to their insurance, your insurance cleans that up. That's typical happens. But there's no liability on the village.
Okay, what if it falls on a person?
Well, then I
It's
guess
still a
he's talking
deductible
about
and
that.
that's it?
Well, it is an act of God and there's issues there and I can't begin to guess what happens there. But if they don't know about it, right, then it's an act
But
of
if
God.
they don't, if they're not coming in and checking, I mean, who's-
There's thousands of hectares of
They're not
acreage,
required
it's
to
not,
inspect.
yeah, there's no way. This doesn't happen that way.
okay,
So I think if you fairly, if it's your property, your house is in danger, you see something's dead, you bring someone's attention.
so we can sue the village.
I am
I
not-
guess that's where I was,
I'm not your
where I
legal
was going.
counsel in
If the
this.
tree, if something happens while Steve's mowing the lawn, you're concerned that he can sue the village.
I am concerned
But-
with anyone getting injured doing maintenance on someone else's property, whether the village or someone else, because the same thing, if I go onto someone's property and I goof around and they're allowing me to do that, it's more about what I'm allowing you to do on my property. I'm putting myself at risk if I chop my foot off in the process of chainsawing a tree on someone else's property, they've allowed me to do that with their tools or even without their tools. I'm allowing them to come on and perform that work. That's a problem.
Okay,
That's what I'm saying.
so you're saying the other way is act of God, this way is,
This way is something
You're-
that's everybody's aware of what you're doing, but it's not, you have not signed any indemnification against the village has not checked with their insurance or legal counsel, and it's something that's just, we're allowing you to do by some unwritten policy. That's a problem. That's a problem. So my advice is for the mayor to get with legal counsel and the insurance, find out how we can craft a policy, which I believe can happen if the village really wants to do that, and everybody's satisfied, right? And that way, that could be a guidance to, as we've been discussing, other ways of maintaining other parts of the village for lack of a better term, volunteerism, right? If you want to have pieces of property, but then we're gonna have to craft policy that says, this is your area, this is what you're doing, right? And everybody signs off on that. So it's like you said, a permit, essentially, type of permit. I mean, there's many ways, I'm sure, to skin this cat, but
first and foremost, you gotta make sure everybody's good with it at the legal and insurance level.
Okay.
That's all I'm
And I
saying.
would do something on an annual basis where they have to come in every year and sign the papers.
Oh,
and
I
say,
completely concur with
I
you.
get it for this year, and then that way,
Yeah,
if something changes, then it could be
you could,
rejected.
that's right, I agree.
And that's us crafting it?
That would
Or
be the
that's
village
council?
crafting it, that would be the village
I mean,
crafting
P
it.
and Z or?
No, that would be the village legal counsel and insurance, and
Okay.
with councils, and whoever needs to authorize it, whether if it's just a piece of policy, the council could pass a resolution, there's many different ways, again, to skin the cat. The first step is to get the legal and insurance advice on how that can be handled, right?
Okay.
And then we go from there. Okay, there's not too much time left. There is an important piece of business this evening which we have to wrap up. Mary, you and I talked about, this has to do with the absence of the commission member who is not present for fourth in a row. Per 1202.02D, any appointed member absent from 4 consecutive meetings of the commission shall be removed from membership on the commission by a majority of the commission members. The vacancy so created shall be filled by appointment of the mayor with the advice and consent of council for the unexpired portion of the term in which the vacancy exists. So you are at that point now where the commission has that authority under the code to, by majority vote, to make the position vacated, and therefore the mayor can then put someone else in it with advice and consent of council. So you'll need to make a motion.
I move that we, remove
Nathan
Johnson
yes,
from the planning and zoning commission
membership.
due to non-attendance.
Yep, 4 in a row.
Second.
I'll second. I would say he also said he'd like to be removed, so,
He hasn't formally resigned though.
okay. I'll second. Mhm.
All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Donna?
I,
All right. Yep. So, voted for and approved. All right. Good.
Alright.
Well, I think it's something that we have to recommend that to council, if we're going to, does council have to?
The mayor at this point makes a recommendation of who is then, and with advice and consent of council. So council votes, that you can do that on the 21st, you can do that on the
Are we
28th.
going to have that person there on that council meeting or?
You do not.
Okay,
You do not have to
so
have any of them there. Whoever wants to fill in off the bench is,
I think we have already had a discussion there and I think
Okay.
we can do who wants to be, so.
Okay.
It's like, yeah, just let him do it.
okay.
Who? Who?
So Brady will step in.
Yeah,
Okay.
so what we'll do is, if we can get,
I'm just one thing about it, in the email, it says Brandon.
It says Braden,
Brandon.
full name, but I go by Braden.
Okay, I just want, okay.
just to make sure. So if we can get council to do it Monday night, if not, it'll be the following Monday.
Yep.
So it'll be before the next meeting.
Yep,
Before
that's
we
good.
run, so I'll see if I can get them to.
Cool.
I'll
So
recommend
then
it.
Then
we
you
need
need to find
another
another-
And then,
non-voting?
so I'm going
Yeah.
to then put out, do you think it's, should I wait until after Monday until we go on to approve them?
Yeah, why don't you wait till-
Advertising.
Officially wait.
So as soon as they do that, then I'll get the advertisement going.
I have one question about you maybe, or you, it's where is, can I get a copy of the development text? I used to be able to get it on the website.
The development text for, what, are we talking about the MI development text?
Yeah.
We can post that, which we should do anyway, so then I'll send it to Becky to post it.
Put it on.
That'll be the easiest way to handle it, because they just approved the latest
Be
version.
able to find it, but it ain't on it.
Yeah, and it should have been under, it probably was under on the old website, everything was up, you know how we had all the plans and stuff for the MI, I think it was mixed in there, but that was the original one approved back in January of 2017 or 16, I can't remember.
Because Don had brought up the topic that, is there, I could have swore there were reserves that people couldn't build fences on.
So it,
Another one of those things I remember hearing.
I do too.
yes, many
Yeah.
things that people heard, it may not have gotten codified.
The fountain in the lake,
Well, but it's in,
yeah.
it's in the development.
So under fences, so I'll pull up the development text right now, so we can, and I'll read it to you, that there's a small section of fences, well, it's a bigger section now because we've added to it. So the only thing that's verboten in there has to do with the, chain links, are definitely, except in case where the school wants to use
I
them.
know there was something in there about doing anything, and I'm pretty sure it was certain reserves, it wasn't all of the reserves. there was certain reserves, you weren't allowed to build a fence up against certain reserves.
I thought it was all of them.
It might have been all of them.
That's what I thought.
It was at least some of them, if not all.
So was that MI, was that us?
It
Or is
in
that-
It was both.
It was in the development.
Yeah, both in this case.
So how many fences do we have up against the reserve?
But that's, there's the one, you know, right there at Cotton Coil or. is that what that is?
There are a lot of them.
That's what I thought.
There, on that court, there are
A couple.
at least two, and I think somebody was getting ready to do another one, I think. Green Line. I can think of at least two. There are some along, is that, Wolf Birch Wolf, whatever the name of that is. Oh, by the way, that guy next to the pond on Wolf Birch he has mowed probably a quarter of that space.
On where?
I know what you're talking about.
On Wolf Birch, if you go under the tunnel, there's the pond.
Yes.
We put a little bench in there. I think somebody told me it's the guy that lives right next to it's the last house there. I saw him the other day and he ended up mowing, whoever it was, he ended up mowing, I'm serious, like probably a quarter of that whole area.
You have to show me so I know where exactly, I mean, I can drive through it.
All you have to do is go walk down the path, you'll see it.
Walk
I'll
the
show
path,
you, but
Okay.
speaking of it. But see, I don't know if that's up for me to say anything.
Yeah, well, when you see it, send us an email.
But we
You're good
haven't
at sending
decided that
emails.
people shouldn't be doing that.
We-
But again, if it's
And-
on our property,
and
it's
it's
not our
MI.
property.
It's not, but
yeah.
we need to get on it because we're gonna be having it, we don't want this to continue, so.
If
Yeah.
this is the topic that we're gonna have, then once the village takes over the property, it can't be on village property, mowing village property,
Yeah.
then they can't be mowing village property.
Yeah, exactly.
So
without waiver.
I think the other issue with it is, my understanding was the first time, I'm assuming it's the same person, the first time they did it, it was sort of more around the bench. And I think the problem is that MI they weren't even doing a path to the bench. So, okay, do a path. And you could walk through it. It's not like it was that dense, but, I think he just kind of went crazy this time. With the little push mower, he did it all. Or at least what I saw.
Oh my gosh, now that I'm thinking about it, I feel like I saw somebody with a official mower doing something like that.
I think getting a process, a formalized process.
I've already sent, as we were talking, sent the attorney
Okay,
an email.
because this is clearly not gonna go away. And
No,
so-
because, I think in one aspect, you have, in your guys' situation, number one, it's done the way they want, because they look at it constantly, and number two, it's easy for them to do it, it's done, they feel like they're doing us a favor, and in all honesty, they are. Until they're doing something you don't want them to do.
Exactly.
Like, I'm just gonna go with, and I've said this 100 times, anytime anybody says anything, I'm always like, well, it doesn't need to look like Stephen Lee says. But it should look like that, because our yard is amazing. So for them to, continue to cut and do all of that and make it look as great as their yard, by all means, it's gonna look better than, I don't wanna say it's gonna look better than if we did it, but it looks amazing.
Well,
So,
I do have to agree, but at the same time, that may not be the aesthetic that the village wants. It's like Susan with her lilies, she thinks they're gonna be beautiful, but not everybody thinks that. So,
and to me, it's more about maintaining it. So let's say that this doesn't go well and the attorney says, no, we have to do it, or Jean says, no, we're not signing waivers, you guys gotta figure out how to get back there and cut it. I wouldn't want to have to weed it around all of that stuff, because at the end of the day, if we are maintaining it, that's what we would have to do.
yeah,
Because you're not going to cut around that.
right.
So again, at that point, you have to start looking at, okay, what's it gonna take to maintain? And that was always the issue when we started talking about green space, when we start planting trees, when we start planting all of this. Because even Brian has mentioned, we have those new trees that were planted, those apple trees and things like that. Now it takes them twice as long to cut the grass over there. It's not an issue, but, those are things that you have to think about.
There is
Because
an effect.
there is, so it takes them, and maybe I'm being
And I
unrealistic.
mean, even picnic benches
It's
You
gonna,
know,
it's
you're
gonna.
gonna have to weed whack around and under them as
Yeah.
opposed to just mowing right past them, and
Correct.
that's, you know, that's an extra 5-10 minutes.
Yep.
I did actually make a point to ask him today about if we did something by the basketball court for the same reason, cause you're not gonna, I guess you could just put shrubs in, but you're probably gonna do a bed and he's gonna have to weed eat. So, yeah, I think you have to consider that.
You do.
Well, I think when it comes time to place stuff, you just kind of gotta think about, well, then go along or get around that.
Mhm.
Yeah, because we have a great lawnmower in the event that it, you know, it can turn around in different areas, so.
Well, he didn't seem to think it'd be an issue, so. Okay, so for now, we're not, we haven't designated that you shouldn't do something or you can do something in village. We're waiting for the attorneys.
You're gonna have to get
Is
some
that right?
advice and craft a
And I've already
policy.
emailed them, so
Yeah.
Okay.
Gina is usually, and actually Gene, I believe Gina's gonna come here tomorrow, because Gene's gotta sign something for me.
Yeah, so it'll be a good discussion to start.
So maybe I'll talk to him.
So we'll post the development text as it was last approved with the last item.
Okay.
In my review, and I remember doing this in 2016 as well, so here's the thing, guys. The council in 2017 had the opportunity to craft a fence policy because MI had left that open. And the council at the time decided not to, right? They passed. The current text, as it stands, does not contain any prohibitions against building fences up on reserves. That could have been put in there, right? That just like a specific type of fence design, so if you didn't like vinyl, a specific height, all of that could have been put into standards, just like an HOA, because MI didn't set up an HOA. Had MI set up an HOA, they would have had specific standards for the fences. The council at the time opted not to do that before, you know, the time to do that was before the first house was finished and conveyed to the first owner.
Did they decide not to?
They did.
Or they just didn't do
No,
anything?
I'm on the record asking them at some point in 2017, do you want to do this? And they opted, they said no,
To do what?
to craft an overall fence policy for the new development.
Oh. Well, but here's the thing that's confusing to me is that we're told that the development text, those rules still apply to the new
Yeah,
development.
that's,
But
there's,
you're
it's a,
saying there's nothing in there.
there's nothing in there that dictates that he cannot build against a
I
reserve.
guarantee you there's something in the
I would be shocked if there's really nothing in there, because I so remember that.
Not for, yeah, but again, that gets back in that 2016, 2017 timeframe, when they could have crafted a whole policy.
No, I know.
But they chose not to.
It's all hearsay.
They chose not to. And you can ask Michael Braun, because this was a large, and Brian Wolf was there, there was a large discussion at the time. There was a discussion, and they wanted, this gets back to the discussion where they wanted to keep, they said, no, we don't wanna make a whole fence policy that's separate of the classic section. That was what the answer was at the end of the day, and they chose not to act on that. However, there were several aspects of that could have been addressed.
See, I felt like MI had something in their own thing that they couldn't build fences on.
That was, it is not in the text that was approved and accepted, okay?
That is,
It is not.
Okay, we'll argue
You can read it all you want,
Because I
it's
pulled
not in
it
there.
up, you know, I used to pull it up off the website and look at it, and it was in that.
You cannot build a chain link fence.
What's that?
You can't build a chain link fence.
I know that, but
That's
there's
what's
also another part of it that says you can't build
On the reserve
fences
areas.
on the reserve areas.
you know,
cannot,
when Donna said that I was like, oh my gosh, she's right.
It's not in there.
And I'm not arguing with error.
Yeah, I'm just saying it's
in
not-
there, but I
it's not in
remember
there.
it just like Donna did.
I
mean,
have
as
read
she
through
said
it.
that, I was
I
like,
can't wait to find it.
it's not there, but you
I
can,
know it's in there.
you can read it many, many times. You're gonna find a lot of good stuff on the houses and the Farview 4, there's a lot of it actually still in there. All that other good stuff.
My record of saying that something's in the code, and it's not being in the code.
It doesn't end up being in the
I can't
code.
wait to see it, because as soon as Donna said that, I was like, holy crap, I totally forgot about that, and now we have a second not even in there, so it'll be, I believe them. I just know that, again, it goes back to the same thing, that's just not what we've been told this whole time.
Right. Well,
Yeah, I
I think
know,
there's
they-
a lot of that.
There is a lot of it.
Actually.
There is a lot of that.
Well, I think those people were told they could have that piece of property before. That's what I feel bad about them, is I'm sure they were told that.
Okay, well, tomorrow I'm gonna make a list of all the things that we have to do for council, that's one. And I already forgot about the other one, so I'll have to go back through and listen to this and see, okay, and you, that was the other thing.
So, do you want me to do, I don't know if I talked to you or Donna, but Reserve D, do you want me to check into what? Anything shelter? I've got tetherball, workout station, dog park, shrubs. Should I be checking into any of this?
I think I'm gonna do a field trip, right?
Yeah. When should we do it? Oh, the
I
next
thought we were
meeting.
doing it
November 1st,
earlier,
6:30,
yeah.
or
Should we do it
October 7th.
sooner?
No, we should do it the next meeting, and at 6:30.
All right.
Well, yeah,
You can all walk
You
over
can
there
walk
early.
whenever you
Only
want.
because if
Yes.
we're all there, we have to advertise,
Yeah.
right? So
Yeah,
it makes
you can
sense.
all walk anytime you want, and I would recommend that too, so.
So is there anything else, anything y'all want me to work on?
I'm just thinking of plan, you know, like the, what plan, you know, where and what you're gonna put them.
I know, I would say, I mean, because I
Okay.
really don't think council's gonna have an issue with
Okay.
at least the Mario's funds to being able to, and we need to double check what exactly we can plant with that money.
You can
Again.
plant any,
It's-
it's
I thought it was
any
any
plant.
shrub,
Perennials,
no.
perennials,
It's any plant material.
it depends on who you ask.
I've read
That's
it.
what you think. It's perennials, it's stuff that's gonna last, that's not dying off. That's not,
The word-
well, I mean, that's
the
not
word
dying
in
off
there
in
is
the year.
Botanicals, it's not perennial. The word that
Okay,
was
well-
used in the thing
And I have it on my
was
list.
botanicals.
So that applies to all
So-
plants?
Shrubs and
I'm
botanicals.
just gonna say, that's for you and Bob to work out, and that might be another one of those things that you've heard this for all these years and it's not actually true, but what I'm gonna look at is perennials, is shrubs.
Oh,
Yeah.
So I'll be safe either way.
Yeah, I mean, I would say, and Lisa, I know you're gonna hate me for saying this, but it's what I tell my wife too. Anything that you have to plant every single year is just throwing money away.
And somebody has to water it. So, I mean, you might have to water these, but
Yeah.
somebody has to
And
maintain
I know
it.
there's an inherent beauty in all this stuff, but it makes no sense for us to plant anything other than.
And I think that was my understanding of, that was sort of her thought, was
Do something else.
I don't wanna pay people to do it because I want people to volunteer to do it, and I don't wanna throw money away on something. So perennials, shrubs, trees,
Well, I don't think we're thinking about doing anything other
no, that's, and I'm
But
gonna
such
tell.
a definition is irrelevant if we know we're gonna
Yeah.
put something that's definitely in
Yeah.
there.
Well, I've been down, I understand that that was her intent, I hate to put it like
Well,
this.
she's the one that left the money, so we should follow her
She
intent.
also wanted to have it done in 5 years too, that was 20 years ago.
What's that?
There was a
She also
5-year
wanted it done in
plan.
5 years.
She had a 5-year
Well,
plan
that's
in
true.
1999. And we're
But
still.
honestly, Tony, have you seen some of what was done with her money?
I think it's
That's
great,
not
and
been
I
taken
really-
care of.
The point I'm trying to make is what it says, okay?
Uh-huh.
And it doesn't say perennials. I understand if we go forward and that's
Okay.
all we do with it, that
Okay.
would be great, that would be the ideal.
Okay,
Alright.
I,
Move to adjourn?
I'll move
I
to
move
adjourn.
Wonderful.
Third, fourth, fifth,
Hi, Donna.
I'm out.
Have a good night, Donna.
Oh, I gotta figure out.